Hey, I heard you like rescue missions, so I rescued your ship to rescue your launch pad. And I killed Swift. Roll the intro.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Roger, roll, Atlantis. Following up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, it sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
Sequence.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my god.
Yikes, you bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome, everybody, to the Flame Trench. This is our mostly weekly news show where we go over things that we find interesting happening in spaceflight and discuss them all with you, and of course with a bunch of commentators here, and we answer your questions and have some fun on a Friday night. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I am your host for this week's show, as with most cases. And as is always the case, I am not alone, thank goodness. Joining me today on commentary, we have... I know EJ's on vacation, but we have Max with us. How's it going, Max?
Yeah, that slimy bugger is still on vacation. Huh? He's skipping out on us for a second week in a row. But yeah, lots to talk about this week, and that was quite the cold open, Sawyer, I have to say.
I wonder who came up with the idea for it, Max.
Yeah, it couldn't have been me. No, it couldn't have been me.
Oh boy, and also joining me today is Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a rescue week, I guess, this time around. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a bit of a weird thing, going from the eclipse last week to now here on the Flame Trench. But yeah, you and I have been on lots of streams recently, though.
Yeah. Oh, wait, are you eclipsing the payload?
I am.
Is that why?
Yeah. So this is Link. Hi, from Catalyst. Here we go.
I don't know. Alex was teasing something with his background before we went live, so I was intrigued as to where that was
I'm
going.
mad with power because now I can control my own background, so I can change it at will.
Is
Oh,
that what
gosh.
that was about? I had no idea. That's
Yeah.
actually, I was like, why is your, because we were like a minute away from going live and your background was still black, and it's like, hey, Alex, knock, knock, knock. It's still black, right? You don't have a background yet. But okay, I get it now.
I mean, I can disable it if you want,
Yeah,
but
No,
Yeah.
jeez.
it's
No,
black
What do you mean?
background. I said just now.
black ground. It's an actual black.
That's how you know that I'm like this one is not working perfectly today, but you know that's gonna make this Flame Trench even more interesting.
Viper was asking before we started if I'm awake enough for this, which I don't know. We'll find out, but I'm scared to see what ends up behind Alex as we go through the show. Because normally the person who is in charge of putting that behind them is the producer, and today that is Jay Keegan. So, Chris Bergen in the back channel, do a horse background to prove it. What do you mean? He's actually at the Catalyst facility with the Link spacecraft that's totally not in space right now, you know? That.
Yeah, I'm not wearing
Alex.
a hairnet, which is why Link is now not working. That's why.
Yeah, like you're not wearing a hairnet, and you're also not wearing a bunny suit. Like what are you doing? Like what are
Yeah.
you doing? What are you doing? That's why it's not working well.
That's probably why. Yeah.
Yeah, someone made a good point. Max, you and I need to change our green screen backgrounds a bit, you know?
Yeah, well, I'll get right on that.
Yeah, because these are totally green suits. Anyway, if you have questions, tag us at NASASpaceflight at NSF. As always, we ask that you please try and keep it related to the topic that we are discussing at that particular moment. We will get to Starship. We always get to Starship. I promise we will. We usually get to that a little later in the show. So Stick around and save your Starship questions for then. The reason I say that is because you can ask a question now and it's going to get totally lost in about an hour's worth of conversation and I'll never be able to find it again. So, apparently, I guess we know why Swift isn't being rescued, because Alex is in there without a hairnet and without PPE. No, we don't know why. But we do know that the Swift rescue mission definitely did not go as planned, as NASA this week announced that following some issues with the Link spacecraft, they are no longer going for the rescue attempt of Swift. The spacecraft will still try to sort of rendezvous and do some proximity operations with it, but because of serious control issues that they've had, that's it. Swift is done. Unfortunately, by the end of the year, the satellite will burn up in Earth's atmosphere and it will be no more after more than 20 years of science. But I mean, you gotta admit, this was a bit of a long shot of a mission, a Project Hail Mary, shall we say. Ooh, they should make a book about that. Basically, it was about 9 months ago, 9 months before launch, a contract was made between NASA and the company Catalyst to come up with a design that could rendezvous and dock with the Swift spacecraft and give it a boost. And the hope was that they could come up with this whole fancy thing of being able to quickly build satellites and rescue missions in need. But as NASA put it, due to an ongoing commercial spacecraft attitude control issue, NASA and Catalyst Space announced Wednesday the Link spacecraft will not capture or boost an agency satellite to a higher altitude to extend its science mission as planned. It's a shame because this launched on the final Pegasus mission here. So this launched aboard the Pegasus rocket, which is mounted underneath the last remaining active flying L-1011 TriStar. Another amazing plane, by the way. And everything seemed to be going okay after it launched back on July 3rd. And then all of a sudden, in late July, it began spinning out of control. And they were trying to figure out what was going on, trying to reestablish control with it. And basically, the only control that they were really able to get was with a couple of the thrusters that they had remaining. But based on what it sounds like, it seems like they were having issues with their cold gas jet thrusters that they used to steer, which if you ever see a Falcon 9 coming into land, it uses those to help adjust itself. So those were apparently a problem, and they were also having issues a bit with some of the reaction control wheels that are used. They just stopped working. I don't know if that's just because they had only 9 months to put it together or what, but you gotta admit, it was a good try to put that all together in under a year for only $30 million and to try and rescue an aging spacecraft that was coming down anyway. So it's a shame. These, by the way, they're pretty much the only pictures we've gotten of it actually in space. Just cool to see, but it's like, man, I wish we saw more from them. But Catalyst is more of a private mission, I guess. So, unfortunately, there is no rescue for Swift, and that's what I was talking about with the cold open, and so that spacecraft will swiftly demise later this year. But I guess one of the things I'm wondering with this is, I mean, this was a long shot from the beginning. It was a really cool idea. I'm amazed that it came together as quickly as it did. But is this a proof of concept, even though it didn't work? Is this something that can actually be viable as we go on? Or is this a proof that maybe we shouldn't be doing this, or at least not something this quick of a turnaround?
I mean, if anything, I think it was a really neat proof of concept that in the span of literally just 9 months and with a relatively small budget just $30 million, that they were able to build a complete spacecraft and launch it and get most of the way to what it wanted to do. Granted, they did end up losing control of it, but the fact that they got as far as they did and it went, I guess the fact that they got as far as they did from the beginning, I think, is a very good sign of things to come. Should they ever have to rise the need for additional missions like this for other spacecraft, other spacecraft of its sort, for maybe a bigger mission for the Hubble Space Telescope at some point in the future when its future is completely finished, even though it's a much bigger spacecraft. But yeah, it's highly admirable. Again, just to reemphasize that is an incredibly short amount of time and a very small budget to build a spacecraft like that. And I wish we got more imagery of it, because if this does end up being the final launch of Pegasus, it happened at night, and we only have like one video of it separating from the TriStar. And Pegasus is a very cool concept of a launch vehicle. Not the most successful in terms like commercially. 'Cause I actually I can't recall the last time we saw it fly before this. It's been a long time. But maybe this will breed further projects like this for other spacecraft in the future. And I don't want to say for those more significant, because that I don't want to disrespect Swift like that. But maybe if this is needed for other spacecraft in the future, I think this could have served as like a benchmark as to what could be done with, I guess, this size of spacecraft and this budget in this time frame. Whether or not they'll have more notice for whatever might be next or less, I guess remains to be seen. But I think all things, even though it was a failure, I think it was a very noble effort to save Swift. I think it was at least worth a shot. So,
I mean, yeah, as someone said in chat, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and some of the ones that you actually do. In this case, but
it is a literal fact. Yes.
I mean, it was just a very interesting way to put it, but it was a good idea. I'm wondering though, because I don't know if we know much about Catalyst. There are a bunch of people, Alex, that are saying that why doesn't Rocket Lab come up with something like this, or why don't they use some form of a Dragon type spacecraft to boost satellites? I mean, is there a benefit to going with someone like that, or is this, I don't want to say above them, but not something that they would be able to accomplish in that 9-month time frame, given all their other projects?
I mean, the more the merrier, right? One of the things of this mission is that there's another company out there trying to do reboost of spacecraft. We saw just a couple of months ago, or rather even less than that, Northrop Grumman launching the MRV-1 satellite, and that's a mission robotic vehicle basically that is supposed to extend the life of existing satellites. That one in particular went to geostationary orbit, but who's to say you cannot do that with something in low Earth orbit? Like, it doesn't need to be one single solution. The more solutions, the better, right? That's sort of the point. If only one company comes to this solution, then that means there's less chances of everyone else being able to take use of this. I mean, the Swift Observatory, there's basically not a lot like it in space, right? So if you really want to save it and have like a Hail Mary, as you mentioned, then sure, go and save it with whoever wants to do it and has the resources and the know-how and capabilities of doing it. It was a pity that, this vehicle lost the gyroscopes, I think it was, right? That it lost. And so if those had worked, everything else seemingly was working perfectly, with the ion thrusters and things like that also working. In fact, the ion thrusters, for example, had to be gimbaled in order to be able to control the full stack. Like, that's one of the things that you only plan because you're planning to dock to another vehicle. There are some other vehicles that are not really planned for that kind of maneuvering, and so you need to redesign it and everything. This vehicle was engineered from the ground up to also have that capability of saying, well, because there's going to be a full stack of, the satellite here and the Link spacecraft on the other side, and the center of gravity, center of mass, and all that stuff will change. Therefore, the thrusters need to be on a gimbal. Like, all of those things are basically things that you think of when you try to develop a spacecraft that is able to do this kind of reboost missions. So maybe, Swift, unfortunately, will not get that reboost. Maybe a cousin, sister, or brother, or whatever, of this spacecraft in the future may do it with another much more important spacecraft. I don't know, maybe Hubble or something like that. Who knows? But this is the kind of technology that, the more companies that have it, the better.
You're right, because there was the discussion way back of Jared Isaacman, before he was with NASA administrator, saying, yeah, I would willing to go and do a mission to boost and repair Hubble with Dragon. And NASA said, no thanks. But they did give the go-ahead to try this mission. Could this potentially be, even though it didn't work, with the proof of concept here, say, maybe this is something we can use to save a mission like Hubble? Because, I mean, it's kind of wild to think that they were able to put this all together in that 9 months. But also, is this something maybe had they considered it earlier that they could have gone and fixed it? Because it seems like we knew Swift was deorbiting for a while, right, Max?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's been a very, very slow decay in terms of its orbit, and I think this sort of capability and mission, I guess, profile is limited to what kind of orbit the spacecraft is in. I mean, it's much easier to approach a spacecraft that's in low Earth orbit or even a geostationary transfer orbit than like where James Webb is out at Lagrange point 2 beyond the moon. Like that's way too far fetched to even think about bringing a spacecraft back to Earth or having it boosted to or having its orbit corrected. Even though at that point, Lagrange point 2, you are mostly dictated by gravity there. So, um, but I think in terms of what else this could be applicable to, or if they had acted sooner, could they have actually pulled it off more successfully? It's tough to say. It all depends on what the appetite for that the current leadership for NASA was at that time, and before JR, there really wasn't a huge incentive to go out and try something this ambitious. But I certainly admire them for trying, because this is going to be a mission capability that is going to be required at some point in the future for something. For what, it's hard to say. Whether it be for something like Hubble or something else that is launched in the future that doesn't quite get to where it needs to go, and they have to launch a bus or a booster to help push it up even farther. Tough to say. But it certainly helps to have this ability to do it and not need it than need it and not being able to do it. I think that's the overall takeaway here.
Yeah, and I did
was
see a
gonna say-
question.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I was going to mention, because we were talking about Hubble and this Swift spacecraft, the observatory, but there's a very important space telescope launching in less than 10 days now, which is also supposed to be serviceable. Like, it is going to Lagrange point 2, Roman Space Telescope by NASA. It is going out there, but when it was conceived, NASA assumed, by then we'll have things like the SLS and Orion and many other rockets probably. So we're going to have the capability to go all the way out there, even with humans, even. Like, who knows what might be possible, right? And so they developed Roman already with that in mind. And there's some of the few things that are on Roman where they could, in theory, just take them out and replace them with better or basically instruments and things like that. It's a weird thing, like, or even refueling the spacecraft to survive for longer in L2. Those are the few things that, because we are where we are right now, are very close to being possible, right? It's like they are just right there. So who knows? Maybe that could also be a thing that can be done in the future with Roman as well.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing was, because there was a question here from J Volt saying, what was Swift and what mission were they doing? I've forgotten. Yeah, it's one of those kind of less known missions because we're not getting these gorgeous, stunning images like we see from James Webb or Hubble. But it actually was studying gamma ray bursts. So it's not like, oh, wow, this is cool for, visualizations. But what it's doing is it has 3 different wavelengths that it uses. So it can study UV, X-ray, and gamma rays, and kind of observe the bursts and how those are going throughout our solar system, throughout the universe. It's really cool. There's not any other spacecraft, as you were pointing out, like it. And IFT-5 Raptor was wondering, is there a replacement for Swift? And as of right now, no, there isn't. So that's part of why they wanted to save this, because it's a cool mission. There's nothing like it. And right now there isn't any plans for another one like it, which, as you can tell from the 480p, if it's even that, maybe even 320 at this rate, NASA animations from when the mission first came about in 2004, it's an old satellite, but it's still working after 22 years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as somebody that likes all of the astrophysics side of things, to me, this like there's I'm gonna go a little bit of a tangent here because there's like an amazing thing that happens in space, gravitational waves. Okay, and not long ago, it was almost 10 years ago, there was a neutron star merger that was detected by LIGO on the ground. And the thing is, when you have black holes merging together and everything, they don't give light. But neutron stars, when they merge together and they create probably a black hole after that, they do give off light. And so it was the very first time that we had captured an explosion of that magnitude through gravitational waves on the ground with LIGO, but also with gamma ray observatories, one of them being Swift. It was like within a few hours, it captured the light of that merger and all of the aftermath from that. And so I will say telescopes like this one are really, really super good at catching that kind of stuff, really energetic events in the universe that happen very far away. And I'm really excited if we get another replacement or something like that down the line. Please, we need it because it's super exciting and super cool.
It really is. And by the way, I do want to mention, you pointed out Roman. That's coming up as of right now, no earlier than the 30th. They did just complete the flight readiness review for the NASA Roman Space Telescope earlier today, and they are still proceeding for August 30th at 7:26 a.m. Eastern Time for that mission. And I mean, we've heard so much about Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope and all the stuff that's doing, and I feel like the only reason that people heard of Swift is because maybe they've heard of this mission. But at the same time, I'm just going to say it. This mission felt really kind of buried under the rug. I don't know if you felt the same way, but to me, it's like people didn't know about this. People barely knew about Swift. They barely knew about the rescue mission. So let's tell the people, no, you know what? We're not going to show any live video of the Pegasus launch. We're only going to have Northrop Grumman post video like 3+ weeks after the satellite was deployed, where you have 2 total photos of the satellite in space. That's it. And then, a couple of blog updates. Is it just me, or does this feel like a very unceremonious death for both missions here? And it just felt, I don't know. I got a gross feeling of like, here's something so cool, and we're not talking about it at all until it failed.
I mean, Swift being over 20 years old now, like it peaked. I think that's probably the most blunt way to put it. Like it peaked, and we knew it was going to come back at some point or another. And I think NASA probably viewed it as if they were able to rescue it, it'd be a nice bonus, but they would be okay if they ended up losing it. But missions that go on for as long as Swift has without a long-term goal at the end, say if you're sending a spacecraft to like Jupiter or Saturn or Pluto, which takes many years to get there, where there's a very long lull period of interest, because obviously there's not much happening in that time until you get there, and then there's suddenly a huge peak of interest. I think one of the most famous examples of which would be New Horizons going past Pluto. But I can't really speak to Swift that much, honestly, because I'm a perfect example. I'm not that familiar with Swift up until this point of this rescue attempt. I don't know. It's had its time. I think there are other missions as well that are coming down the pipeline, which have taken other attention from NASA and also the public, like Nancy Grace Roman. So I think that's probably the most. It sounds unkind, but that's probably why it hasn't received the most amount of attention. It also makes me wonder if there was any technology on board the rescue craft that was very proprietary and that they didn't want showed off that much, or if something about the mission profile just they wanted to keep on the down low. I don't know, but I'm with you, Sawyer, that there was certainly not a lot of great coverage for it, I guess, might be another blunt way to say it. Like this all kind of just happened out of the blue. There was no way for us to really follow it outside of a blog entry, and there wasn't a live stream for it. And this also happened at night, so there wasn't much to see anyway, right? So it's kind of a shame. It's a quiet, perhaps, exit for Pegasus, and we hope to God they find a use for the L1011, because that's like it's the last airworthy one in the world, and then it'd be a real shame if they had to put that in the boneyard for whatever reason, or have it lose its airworthiness. But yeah, it was a very is subdued the right way to put it, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a good word for it. It just, I don't know, it left a bad taste in my mouth because it's so cool. It was a great concept. I guess maybe also because they weren't sure if it was going to work, and obviously
Yeah.
didn't. But that wasn't
Yeah.
so much the fault of the mission design. It was parts of the spacecraft just didn't work. It's not like they went to dock and, oh, the docking mechanism didn't work, or something went wrong once it was attached to Swift. It was just, spacecraft never got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. That L1011 needs to be displayed in a museum somewhere or saved somewhere. You know, put a mock Pegasus underneath it, because that is such a sad way for this vehicle to go. Pegasus should have gone out on a big, high success, and instead it's going out on a mission that, I mean, it deployed it successfully, but then kind of puttered out, and it got no attention and no love. And again, the only video we have is that 23-second loop that we've been showing on screen.
I mean, maybe there'll be maybe they'll find a new use for Pegasus down the line for like 1 or 2 more missions for something. I don't know. I'm not sure how many more they have lying around, or if they have the ability to manufacture more. Because Pegasus is a pretty old vehicle as well. I want to say it's like, what, 25-ish years old? I want to say. I can't remember when its first flight was exactly.
I believe they said that
older?
they do have the capability to make more, and I think the
Okay.
reason for that is because some of the stages are also used in other missiles and things like that. They're just
Yeah.
not made for Pegasus, right?
Yeah.
And there obviously components are more Pegasus than missile, but since there's commonality, they can just basically come up with a Pegasus rocket if they really like. If anybody wanted, they can probably come up with that and launch it. But yeah, right now there's no Pegasus. Like, one of the reasons they were able to launch this one in such a short notice is because they had one hanging around, right? And they were like, sure, let's launch it. It worked and everything, but now they don't have any one of those hanging around, so they actually need to make it. But as I mentioned, they said, I'm only saying what Northrop Grumman said, not saying that I buy it, but they did say that they will have the capability to make it if anybody asks for it.
Yeah, by the way, the first Pegasus was deployed aboard a B-52 in April of 1990. The first one that was deployed from a L-1011 TriStar, that was June of 1994. So, yeah,
Even launched
32
from
years
here,
ago
from
was
the
the
Canary
the
Islands.
first Pegasus launch on an L-1011.
And Micah actually, so our very own Micah, based around Wallops, actually saw this around Wallops when it was coming by or en route to its launch site. So very rare sight, because not only did he see the only airworthy L-1011 in the world, he also saw what could be the last Pegasus rocket to ever fly, mounted to it on the bottom, just right there out in the open. I'm extremely jealous. Micah, if you're listening, I'm extremely jealous still. Because that is a very retro combination duo. I think might be a good way to put it. It's very retro because the TriStar is a very old jet as well, and Pegasus, obviously having flown, what was that 1994? You said.
First one aboard a L-1011. The first actual one, though, was 1990
Okay.
aboard aboard a bomber jet.
Yeah, so it's a very retro duo, and we're not sure if we're ever going to see this again. And the fact that it was wearing NASA logos on it, I think, is even more nostalgic. But we hope to see more of it in the future, because this is like old hardware like this. We hate to see it die, and we are unfortunately getting to the point where we're seeing a lot of old glory spaceflight hardware being retired, like the Atlas V payload. The words. The satellite carrying Atlas V variants, Delta IV Heavy, or the entire Delta IV line a couple years ago. And this might be next, and it's kind of sad because look at it. It's like you don't see aircraft launched rockets too often, because there was this, and then there was Virgin Orbit, which flew off of a 747.
Yeah, that went great.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very. I'll say it again. It's retro.
I do find funny that the only other successful air launch, so to speak, is Stratolaunch
Yeah.
with Rock and Talon.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, excuse me, this sort of I don't know architecture with Pegasus and the TriStar, it also did similar stuff of like hypersonic flights with sort of like missile testing and whatnot and other kinds of test vehicles just modified for that. And it's sort of hilarious that it's the only things that are still kicking around and doing all the stuff with air launch. Because yeah, Virgin Orbit didn't go that far,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
hey Europe,
but
how'd that go for a launch from European soil
Hey,
there on
hey,
that one? The
hey.
whole big hip hip parade
Hang
they
on.
were making about that.
Two things. First of all, Virgin Orbit was American, and second, it was from the UK. Is it Europe? Whatever.
It's not the European Union, but it's Europe.
I know. I was making just a joke. Also, it was
I
from
know.
the air. Like, hey, the TriStar and Pegasus flew from the Canary Islands as well. One of the launches of Pegasus was from there, and I'm not saying it also launched from Spain, but yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I had to call that out. There was the hype about that of, oh my gosh, hey, it's launching from the UK, it's launching from British soil, it's over in Europe, yay, finally, and then it failed. So, and then the company went bankrupt. Which is a shame because I actually got to tour their facilities. I saw one of their rockets that I don't think it ever flew because of the issues and then going bankrupt and all that. But yeah, so let me thank some people here. Swiftly moving along, the Space Pope, blessing da Trench. Well, now that EJ's not here, I can say da Yankees win. Also, Space Pope gifting 20 Red Team memberships. Blessings be with you too, Space Pope. Thank you so much for that. Turtle Sanctuary gifting 5 Red Team memberships as well. Thank you so very much. Telstar 86. No Swift rescue, so they're never, ever, ever getting back together. Oh, wait, wrong Swift.
Oh my God.
Good thing Ryan Weber
Ugh.
isn't on stream.
I gotta say, if
Good
you
Lord.
watch This Week in
Yep.
Spaceflight coming up after the Flame Trench, I know Alicia, she actually wrote a lot of puns, Swifty puns, in the script.
she?
Yeah,
Oh,
She
no.
did.
like
I
think it
I've
was
seen-
Marty, the one who wrote that story, and then she herself included puns related to Taylor Swift. Just saying, if you want to see her doing that, just watch that after this stream.
And I'll give you a hint from what I saw. See how many you can count. I want to see how many references that Alicia makes that you can count and type it in the comments when it gets posted after this show. STL Casper, I'm guessing St. Louis Casper. I take it with Swift, they couldn't just hook a tow line and pull it back like Flight 13? Also, how often do you check the business email? I would have to ask the business people. I don't have access to that email, but I would imagine it gets checked. Luna, thank you for becoming a Padrat member and then upgrading quickly to Red Team membership, which that way you get some of those extra member benefits, including some photos and other cool members bits and behind the scenes stuff that gets posted here on the YouTube channels. And Soli OMK, I'm probably butchering these names, but thank you for becoming a Red Team member as well. Someone said it's officially my fault. 1-to-1 correlation of tours versus failed Swift rescues. I haven't seen the L1011. I haven't been to these launches. I haven't even been to the UK, so you can't blame me for Virgin Orbit. That was after the issues that they had that I got to tour Virgin Orbit's facilities.
And I believe
All
the TriStar is based at Mojave. I know a certain, I almost said his name, a certain orange colored enthusiast who loves the West Coast of the United States would have a lot more information on TriStar's whereabouts. I want to say it's based at Mojave, so I think that's the place to go if you want to go see it. But I don't know how accessible that is, so take that with a grain of salt. 'Cause I've never been, but hopefully they keep it flying. But yes.
By the way, can I just point something out that I think is absolutely crazy here?
What?
I think it's crazy that, of what we saw of this Pegasus launch portion and everything itself, we saw more from a recent Chinese mission than we did from an American mission, Pegasus and NASA branded on the side of it. Alex, it's over to you for the newest member of the booster landing family of rockets across the globe.
Yeah, I guess because it's time for the what will be? Hang on, I'm gonna try and pronounce that one because it's a bit of a thing. The Chucha 3, and that's the only time that I'm gonna say it in
I think it's Zuka
my
3,
attempt.
but yeah.
Yeah, like the Chinese pronunciation because it's like Chucha 3, and then the engines are the Qianche. I have the notes here. Anyways, I'm not gonna say the full Chinese name every single time. Let's go with CQ3. How about that? So yeah, that's the rocket. I also have it in my background now. Haha, mad with power. But yeah, so as you can see, it had its second launch just a few days ago, and also its very first landing. It was the second Chinese rocket to perform a propulsive landing. This one on land, the very first, because the previous one was the Changjiang 10B, I think it was. My God, it's been a while. The Long March 10B, basically the English version of its name. But yeah, and so another milestone launch out of China. They're sort of catching up, if you will, to reusability finally, and yeah, I mean, if we want to go, I have here lots of things about the mission and the rocket and things like that. It was launching one of the sort of communication satellites that it's one of the subsidiaries of Landspace. They're trying to make its own sort of Starlink-like constellation as well for communications and connectivity and all that stuff. The important thing, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about the rocket itself. So you may see it looks a lot like a Falcon 9 mixed with a super heavy / Starship sort of thing, because it's got chines and it's stainless steel and all that stuff. It's also methalox, so it's like methane and oxygen as well on the first and second stages. But it's actually a little bit shorter than Falcon 9, but wider. It's like 65.9 meters tall instead of 70 for Falcon 9. 4.5 meters in diameter instead of 3.67, so it's a little bit fatter and shorter than Falcon 9. And then also the capabilities are more like the V1.1 version of Falcon 9 rather than the current version of Falcon 9. It's like 9 metric tons to low Earth orbit reuse versus 17 for the current Falcon 9 version. And then expendable, it can do about 16 metric tons versus 23 for Falcon 9. So it's still not there yet, but they're getting there because they are also planning more like an improved version of that rocket, which will be the CQ3E. Basically, it's like the E for hands or something like that. But you can see it uses grid fins, landing legs, it lands propulsively, it's got the chines, so it looks like a mix between Super Heavy and Falcon 9. Very similar to how Super Heavy, at least the previous version of Super Heavy, worked. The grid fins are also like in an X-wing pattern instead of actually 90 degrees apart, so it helps sort of optimize a little bit the usage of how the grid fins interact with the wind and everything during the re-entry and whatnot. But yeah, we were joking that there was a very similar video of Falcon 9 doing this, and we put out a video with Das commentating, like talking about it and going over it and looking at the details and everything. We need to repeat that for this, and it's gonna be another Das plane, I guess. But yeah. And one of the things that happened, though, even though it landed successfully, we can see an amazing landing and everything. The problem is that booster didn't last that long upright. So first of all, there was a fire that developed right after the landing, and you can sort of see there's the fire, and yeah, the fire weakened one of the landing legs, and that was not great for the landing leg. And eventually, a bit after, during the recovery process and whatnot, the booster just fell off, and so it's sleepy. It's currently sleeping, I guess. But yeah, successful landing, not so much for the recovery. Might have to try again. But hey, it's not like there's the speed running this thing, because recently I say recently, last year, it happened to a Falcon 9 booster, B1086, where it also had a very similar outcome where it had landed successfully, and then a few minutes later, it developed a fire on the engine section. It basically broke one of the legs and it tipped over. So, I mean, they speed run all of these things, I guess. But yeah, one of the things is that I was thinking, if anything, this shows that they should just ditch the landing legs and just catch it. I mean, the other booster, the Long March 10B, it landed. It even had a bit of a fire on the interstage, but it was put out and it was recovered and it went back and probably be refurbished for another use later this year. Whereas this one, it will not be reused. That's for sure. So maybe a catch is actually what they need to do. What do you guys think? I guess it's sort of, yeah, it really reinforces the I don't know.
I think it took a bit too much
Point for that.
inspiration from Booster 1058.
Oh, don't
I
bring that one
know,
back.
I
No.
know.
My
But
precious.
I would actually argue that ZQ3 is a mix of 3 rockets there. So Falcon 9 with its engine configuration, its landing legs and grid fins in terms of numbers. Starship in terms of it being built of stainless steel and also its grid fin configuration, but also New Glenn in the way that it only has 2 strakes and they're placed on the booster very similar to where New Glenn's are. So there's a bit of 3 designs working in tandem there. So it's tough to say they're copying anybody, honestly, even though it would be somewhat easy to jump to that conclusion based off of what you see, especially with Falcon. But at some point, you just have to accept that there's just some certain designs that just work. And going forward, there are going to be a lot more rockets that incorporate certain design elements that Falcon 9 pioneered, being like landing legs, its 4 grid fins, and so on and so forth. But yeah, dude, it's incredibly impressive to see, and I think despite it falling over, I think ZQ3 probably has a very bright future ahead of it. I would honestly argue that it was more impressive to see that than it was for Long March 10 because I don't know how scalable Long March 10's infrastructure is because it looks small compared to its cage around it and its cables. But if you want to do that with a bigger rocket, it's going to be a lot more difficult to scale the infrastructure around it to catch it in that manner. So I would argue that a rocket landing like ZQ3 or Falcon 9 or like Starship being caught in chopsticks like that on a tower and not out at sea is going to be a lot more sustainable than Long March 10's approach. But hey, it's their rocket; they can do what they like. But yeah, I think it was seriously impressive, despite it falling over.
Yeah, there was
the one
something
difference
that.
I think.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the one difference there between the one that has the fancy catching contraption out in the water versus this one is complexity. There is a lot less complexity in this. The landing zone is fixed in place. It does not move. You don't need to have these wires and arms that have to go in just the right spot and catch you. It's you either land on the landing zone, or you land next to the landing zone, or you go kaboom. Or in this case, you land on the landing zone and then fall over and not really go kaboom, but, not be upright and recovered properly.
Yeah.
I think this is honestly the way. And if you look at all the other companies that have done it, of which there's not many, you've got the Falcon family, which does both land and flat barge. You've got New Glenn, which does the flat barge. And then this one, flat land. They're all kind of proven. And then, of course, the random fancy catch contraption there. And you can see that flat line turning into a hockey stick there. I do find that entertaining, too.
I was going to say, they don't land on a drone ship because they can't. So they launch from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, which is like a very inland spaceport. Yep. And that's the one where when they launch an expendable rocket, all of those boosters just drop on villages, right? Especially from another one, I think is Jichang. But basically, this one, instead of just being dropped off out there in the desert or a village or whatever, it actually landed on a landing pad like That's the thing. But yeah, there's no sea. You can see there's no ocean, there's no water there. It's just desert, right? In fact, this landing pad, I was reading up about it. It's 390 kilometers downrange, which is shorter than the distance downrange from Falcon 9. And the whole reason for that is because they've been very conservative of their basically the distance that they are traveling uphill in order to be able to leave a lot more residual propellant in the booster for the landing burn. So part of their progression to a higher performance of this rocket will entail also, going with a landing zone further downrange and being able to do these landings a little bit more aggressively, because you can see it actually lands a little bit more slower there as well. So in the future, it might be like maybe 500 to 600 kilometers downrange, but for the first few flights, it's a little bit closer. Sort of like Falcon 9 originally also had like a boost back burn even for drone ship landings, even though it was a drone ship landing, but they still tried to remove a little bit of that so that it could re-enter slower. And Max, to your point of like they used things that were around, right? And they also went with something simple, like it's a Methalox engine, but it's not full flow stage combustion or anything. It's just a simple gas generator engine, 80 metric tons of force. The one in the second stage is a little bit more power, but not that much. So it's very simple, very like, this is what we've got, and it flew already before this. Like, it's an engine that had already flown on their previous Methalox rocket, which was the Jojeth 2, and I'm not gonna refer again like that. It's the CQ2 basically, which is sort of the smaller sibling of this rocket, and so it also became the first orbital rocket to fly just on methane alone to reach orbit.
True.
So yeah.
I was going to comment on the landing there as well, Alex, because if you compare that to a Falcon 9, for example, because of how much thrust Falcon 9 produces, even on a singular Merlin 1D engine, it still has too much thrust, even at its minimum throttle setting, to hover. So what they have to do is literally light the engine, or engines in some cases, as late as physically possible in what is somewhat unlovingly called sometimes a suicide burn, because if you fire it too late, you're going to torpedo right into the ground. If you fire it too early, you're actually not going to hit. You're not going to hit the ground, and you will start climbing again. So you have to fire the engine at just the right moment to meet the ground at between a certain velocity that works with the landing legs before you shut down. Whereas in this case with ZQ3, I think them being more conservative in their approach to how far downrange they wanted to carry it allowed them to have enough propellant on board to be a lot more gentle in the way they want to approach the LZ. Similar to what we saw with New Glenn on its second flight, and them approaching Jacqueline, because it came in supremely slowly, even compared to what we see with super heavy boosters on the tower. Because like New Glenn, it fired its 3 engines for the initial burn for landing, and then came down to 1 engine, and then like literally like it slowly hovered itself over Jacqueline, and it's just like, on one hand, you can appreciate being gentle and making sure you get it right, but at the same time, being slow, moving slow like that and hovering, that's just wasted propellant you could have otherwise used going uphill. And so, but that's something you have to learn in tune the more you fly your rocket and really push to see how far you can really fly and still recover the first stage. And that is what Falcon 9 has really been able to prove, or SpaceX has been able to prove with Falcon 9, because they've flown it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times now, especially the Block 5. So it's going to be interesting to see how ZQ3 progresses. And I think I saw some graphics on X somewhere. I couldn't find them again, but there were some subtle design changes between ZQ3 Vehicle 1 and ZQ3 Vehicle 2, and that Vehicle 2 was a little bit shorter. The fairing design was a little bit different. I think
a few things have changed.
Yeah, a few things have changed, and obviously for the better. And obviously there was a lot more inside as well that we can't see or know. That has changed as well. But obviously it worked well enough for Flight 2 to have the booster at least land and be in a position to be recovered had it not had the fire and fallen over. So I think that was a very positive step for Landspace and ZQ3 overall.
Yeah, because
What I-
Eric Myers was asking, do we know if it can hover or does it hover slam? Which I like that term better, the hover slam.
Hover slam. Yes. That's
Yeah.
the more affectionate term to use there.
It's a
Yeah, I
hover
like
slam,
that one.
but it's like more gentle. Like if you can imagine, if you have residual propellant, then your rocket is heavier, right? And so that means you don't need as much thrust, or rather the opposite. Like you don't need to throttle down as much to get to a hover position, right? It did not hover, but it was coming down very slowly at the end there, where it almost seemed like it was hovering, right? It felt like, I don't know, like the very first super heavy catch, although less brutal for the landing burn, because super heavy
Yeah.
lights up 13 engines, right? For the
Yeah.
landing burn. I still found interesting because the rocket is made out of stainless steel, which means it comes in a little bit heavier than an aluminum rocket, like say Falcon 9. And so at the start of the landing burn, you could see the shockwave from going transonic, just like we see
Yeah.
from super heavy.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it is so heavy that still hasn't slowed down enough to become subsonic. And so it's pretty much still during the transonic region. It might have been another. I think I probably did not link that. I'm sorry, Jay. But yeah, it was like a drone view that they uploaded from. I think it was DJI. Was that they uploaded that one? There's been,
Yeah, it was
I don't know
DJI.
why, but they went crazy with the drones as well. There's like
Yeah, they
drone
did.
shots
Can
and
I just
everything.
point out-
Yes,
If I
they
can find
did.
it now.
Whoever their drone operator is needs to learn to chill. It was a little on the dizzying side. Yeah, we're just going to swoop through the rockets and upside down and all around. This isn't an advertisement for a real estate place with going through the home and showing the different rooms. This is a rocket. Okay?
The end
I'm just
result's
saying
pretty
it.
sick, though. I'm not going to lie.
I mean,
Just
look
saying.
at this. Tell me if it needed to go this hard. It did not. It did not need to go that hard.
Says you. Says you. Hype videos always have to go hard. Like, if the SpaceX drone operators had the ability or the freedom to do this at Starbase, like, you can imagine they'd be going freaking nuts.
Yeah,
And that
but
would
when you
be
play it like that and speed it up, it's like you're going to throw up watching it.
I think it's
All-
cool.
All that around what looks like an Energizer battery with the color and the text, just saying. I know, I'm a terrible
I never
human being.
thought about that, actually. That's scarily accurate, yes.
Yeah, the color of it, the little swoop on it, it looks like an Energizer
Mhm.
battery. So, yeah. I know Jay was showing the video there of the Starship catch, too. And so Henry Slack was wondering if LM-10, the one that's caught between the cables, isn't scalable because of being caught, then Starship isn't scalable either, ...
Oh,
How do you respond to that?
I wouldn't know. Long March 10 isn't scalable. I don't believe Long March 10 isn't scalable because it can be caught. It's more so the infrastructure around it isn't as scalable considering the scale of the rocket. You can scale it, but at what point does the size and complexity overwhelm the results or the risk of failure of not catching it? Whereas with Starship, you're not aiming for a very small hole between lines on a barge in the middle of the ocean. You have an open space between chopsticks on a tower that has the ability to get taller over time because the rocket itself is going to get taller over time going forward with version 4 and I presume beyond as well. You have a lot more open area with a super heavy coming into the tower than you do for a Long March 10 first stage coming to land in between wires coming into what seems like a small opening. And again, Long March 10, that footage is kind of deceiving because Long March 10 is actually a pretty sizable first stage booster, and that wasn't even the full size booster. It was a test vehicle. It's going to be bigger. So I wonder, like that was the point that I was really trying to get across is at what point does the size, weight, and complexity of that like wire catching system become not worth the risk of the rocket suffering a malfunction and crashing right into it and ruining it, and how long will that take you to repair it? I don't know. That's just where my mind goes with it. Maybe that's just because it's such a foreign method of recovering first stages compared to what we're used to here in the US. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like the safest of ideas in terms of your infrastructure, to me at least.
Hey, Max, did you hear
Yes.
they caught the booster?
They got the booster.
They call it a booster.
And you know what, Sawyer? We're under 2 months away from the anniversary of Flight 5, which is when they caught the first booster. If you want to feel old for a second.
I feel really old. Thanks.
So, remember what I said? I found it, and finally Jay has the footage line up. It's crazy the way that this thing comes in, because it reminds me a lot of that super heavy landing. Can we play it? Let's see. I'm seeing him. There we go. So you can see it there. That's the shockwave.
Oh.
And engines ignite.
You're right.
It ignites 3 engines, and then it goes down to 1 in the middle, basically.
Dude, that's just like New Glenn as well. Because remember Flight 2, the shot from the WB-57, there were shockwaves, and then we saw 3 BE-4s light for its landing burn before we lost it in the clouds. So yeah, I mean, trying to light your engines when you're borderline supersonic is a daunting enough task as is, especially when you have 13 of them on Super Heavy compared to 3 on either New Glenn or in ZQ3 here. So, yeah, but rockets are just cool, man. Rockets are just freaking cool.
Rockets are cool. In other news, the sky is blue.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I think that was also the entry burn.
Entry burn.
Yeah.
It looks so much like the Falcon 9 entry burn.
It does. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like a Falcon 9 in the other shot, and then Starship in this shot.
Wow. Yeah.
It's wild.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah. It is.
And there are more to come from China.
There's more to come from the US as well.
That too.
Oh yeah. You know what's cool though? The people that help support us here at NSF so we can do what we do.
There you go.
That includes Space Watcher 01 saying a little help from an old retired guy. Well, thank you so much. If you're retired, you can get untired and get some sleep. Is that how that works?
Good grief, Sawyer.
I'm tired, okay? In case you couldn't tell from this morning's Starlink
That's
launch,
too damn bad!
I'm tired, and it's gotten worse as the day has gone on. I think I got a 15-minute nap in there. That's about it, if that. So, yeah. Thank you, though, very much. We do appreciate that. Now, we kept talking a lot about Blue Origin and New Glenn in particular. So, how about we talk about the new updates that we got last week when we weren't on the air in regards to...
Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
What?
Hang on. There.
Oh, the background.
Oh, my God.
We
feel
gave
like
Alex
Lady
way
Gaga
too
now.
much power.
Changing customs or whatever.
Alex now has too much power. You already had too much power with the drawing, and now this.
Yeah, whatever.
Next thing you know, it's just going to be a screenshot of me and Max behind him.
No, don't be giving him ideas now, Sawyer. Don't do that.
Remember we used to do GIFs during Flame Trench?
Yes, I do.
Put those behind Alex. Anyway, so yeah, on to New Glenn. We got a couple things to talk about with New Glenn and with Blue, so we'll take a little bit of time with them. Starting off with 36B. So finally, we've had LC-36 this whole time, and then it kind of blew up and kind of got wrecked and destroyed, and one of the towers collapsed, and they took down the other tower, and, you know, it New Glenned itself. I think it's the correct terminology now.
I mean, they needed a rescue of that pad?
Swiftly moving on.
Oh my God.
I see you trying to link the stories together, but oh well.
Jesus.
He can't help you here. Yeah, this was them removing parts of the main flame bucket there and everything following the events that happened. And of course, they're trying to get back to flight. We've recently covered the plans that they have to redo this pad. They wanted to get a launch off by the end of the year. We'll see if that happens. But basically modifying what they have to make it happen. One thing that they want to do from scratch, though, is the pad for their upgraded version 9x4. And when we talk about 7x2 and 9x4, that has to do with the number of engines. So that would be 7 BE4 engines and 2 BE3U upper stages versus 9 of the BE4s and 4 of the BE3U upper stages for the other ones. So it's going to be a lot taller, carry a lot more stuff into space. So rather than share one pad, they're working on a second one. And as you can see there, we finally have a render of what it is going to look like. So the plan for both of these is to have everything stacked vertically. So they'll have eventually a vertical integration facility, a payload processing facility, and they'll be able to bring it over here. And then you can see it has those lift arms, which, I don't know, a raised flame trench, lift arms. Where have I seen that before? Couldn't guess.
Couldn't tell you, Sawyer. I don't know.
Yeah, although it's worth noting that those are not catch arms. They are only lift and integration arms. There are no plans to use those to catch, unlike a certain other pad 2 at, say, some places that rhymes with R-base Exis.
And every other pad related to it going forward.
If you have any doubts that it is for catch or not, like if you're wondering, just look at the booster, like right at the bottom. See there? Like there's these black things around the base of the booster that are called landing legs. So yeah, it's definitely not using that tower for catching. But I do find interesting that they have those arms. Yeah. Ooh, zooming.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. It's also in the wrong orientation because the chopsticks will be looking basically to the west, and the rocket it's probably mostly going to be coming from the east as it comes back.
Wait, so
from its
so this render isn't even correct?
No, I assume it is correct. It's just that it will not be in the right orientation for a catch, like unless you want to come in from above the tower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's correct orientation for lift and stack, but not quite for anything more than that.
What I can't quite shake is how similar in design it is to Pad 2 in a lot of its elements, being like that looks like half of the Pad 2 launch mount right there, and the lift. I wonder what acronym that they're going to use or what name that they're going to call those. The vertical integration. The vertical integration carriage system that might be a good thing to call it.
I don't know. We need other Jeff Bezos family members' names that they could use because we have Jacqueline for the landing platform vessel. So
yeah, it's not recovery though. So is that?
I don't know.
But like,
chat help me out with that.
Kind of similar to the philosophy that we were talking about with why ZQ3 looks so familiar to New Glenn, Starship, and Falcon 9. It's like, at what point also, considering the vertical integration that Blue is trying to move forward with on New Glenn, does this design just make sense above all other design choices? So
it's obviously just espionage and copy pasting and everything. They don't care about. Oh wait, we're talking about Blue. Never mind.
I mean, like, what this render also shows, and what I can't get over, is just how proportionately wrong 9x4 looks. Like, I thought it looked okay when 9x4 was first announced, but my lord, especially in comparison to the 7x2 there in the background, like, oh my god, 9x4 looks like you stretched it, somehow twisted it, and then like punched in its nose to make the fairings fat, and like, I don't like the strakes are comically large on the booster. The what do they call the AF module? I guess AF module looks incredibly fat compared to the rest of the booster because the overall diameter of the tank structure remains the same as 7x2, but the AF module is much bigger in diameter to accommodate the 2 extra BE4 engines compared to 7x2. It's a design choice. It's like a mix of a Stingray, a Falcon 9, and I don't know what else to. It's a design choice. I just hope it works. Honestly, I just hope it works. I just hope it works. But also, I can't help but shake again at the design choice for the 7x2 pad now to have that like RSS or rotating service structure looking structure now attached
instead of the other one.
Exactly. To service the 7x2 variant like that. So interesting design choices that Blue has made to support New Glenn going forward in both variants. But I trust their engineers to make it work. They obviously have their own reasons for making these design choices, and key of which for 7x2 was getting it working as quick as possible to get 7x2 back in service as fast as possible. And then the 9x4 pad was built to handle a lot more thrust and handle a lot bigger and heavier of a vehicle, while also supporting vertical integration in itself. So yeah, just strange, very strange. Like the tower almost makes it look longer somehow.
It does, because keep in mind the tower that's the one over for Pad A over there for the regular 7x2 New Glenn is the tallest lightning tower that's been built for a launch pad here. So
yeah,
it is massive. And now compare that with what it looks like, at least based off what we can see from the scale of the render here. Yeah, this thing is going to be huge. And also interesting that one is like, oh yeah, we'll stack it out at the pad with that. And 7x2 is, you know what? We'll use a crane for now. Either we'll use a crane to stack it, or eventually I know there was a plan for them to have a separate payload processing facility and its own vertical integration facility, kind of like what we see over at 41 for Atlas and Vulcan, and then have it roll from there out to 39 or 36A, excuse me. I don't know. I'm also wondering, it's cool that we see this for, for 9x4. We're seeing a lot of effort put in for 9x4, but as you can see next to me, this is what we have to show for it right now. Nothing. We don't have anything for that. What do we have to show for 36A's rebuild right now? Same thing. Nothing. They want to get it done by the end of the year. I know they're taking down the towers and stuff, and they're working on getting it back into place, but should they really be focusing on getting 9x4 online when they still don't have 7x2, and that's the one they kind of need for the Artemis program?
I mean, I think they're allocating resources as efficiently as they possibly can to support 7x2, the 7x2 pad rebuild, while also they're probably not full steam ahead on building LC-36B right now, as they are trying to rebuild 36A, which is where 7x2 has launched from and will continue to launch from. Because also now, like, we have, as of today, I think it was, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said on the record that they could launch Artemis 3 as soon as June of next year. And they need all three key Artemis launch vehicles for that, being SLS, Starship, and New Glenn. So the is certainly ticking for Blue and New Glenn now. So I think most effort is going to be concentrated on getting 7x2 back up and running. And then once that is back up and running, I think then they'll focus more resources on building the 9x4 pad, because that's going to take some time to build. And also, I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take to get 9x4 to the pad for the first time, because we have no idea the state of the hardware that they're building for it right now. But the clock's ticking for Blue. Artemis 3 could be launching as early as June of next year, which is not that far away. Like, it seems far away, but it's not that far away. Like, that is 8 months away, 9 months away. Like, that'll be here before we know it.
June, you said?
Yep.
That's 10
June
months.
of 2020.
Never do math live on stream. I've learned that the hard way the last couple of days with all the static fires, but yes. Yeah. Someone in chat said Jared is now learning Elon time.
I wouldn't. Ambitious. I don't know if I wouldn't put it like that. I don't think that he would come out and say a date like that. Certainly from a government entity, if there wasn't a decent amount of confidence that Blue was going to meet that. I think Blue can meet that easily. I think they can get the pad up and running to support 7x2 probably as early as like maybe March or April of next year, if they really put their heads down, which they have. But otherwise, the other two Artemis launch vehicles are coming along very well to this point so far. SLS is human rated, I think, deemed operational now. And Starship version 3 is coming along very well, despite the issues that they're still having with the booster, because the ship itself is what matters most in that Artemis equation. Not that the booster isn't important, but the ship is what's going to do a majority of the work for Artemis. And so far, version 3 has been performing very well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Blue progresses towards the end of the year with this, because I think they still have publicly said that they want to try and launch by the end of this year, which the jury's still out if they actually will or not, because it's already end of August almost, and it's almost fall time. So it remains to be seen. The pad is not short of activity, though. You can see, I think this is live on Space Coast Live right now. You can see the amount of cranes there right now trying to get stuff built and moved around. Also, from our aerial views from our last flyover, and from the images posted from the pad has been an absolute, like, it looks like an ant colony with how much activity in vehicles and people are there. Like it's kind of insane. It looks like how Starbase used to, honestly, which is not an insult, because it means there's a lot of people there trying to get work done. So I think Blue's taking this very seriously, and I think the effort is going to continue. But the clock is ticking, whether or not they actually meet it or not.
Yeah, but Max, they would never lie about the dates like that, because Artemis was supposed to have its first flight in like 2015, and then we'd be on the moon by 2020.
Different circumstances at that point. Like, I wouldn't.
Come on, how?
What do you mean how? China was not a threat back then. We have new leadership in the White House who actually at this point has proven to care about the mission so far. And we had not had a NASA leader this driven in a very long time, and he is quite clearly getting stuff done. And there also hasn't been this strong of a partnership.
He flew around, not driving. Anyways,
what? For God's sake, Alex! Ugh. I was trying to make a serious point there.
I know. We're in the flame trench, so you got to deal with that.
That's true. Checkmate. Yeah, I don't think that's a fair comparison to make, as warranted as it may be, honestly, because Artemis is, in the grand scheme of things, years behind what the initial target was. But the past is the past. Like, that's behind us now. We have new targets in front of us. We have new commitments. We have new partners, and a new mission to get the job done. So I think the circumstances here are a bit more severe if we don't get it right.
Same with Starliner. How's that going?
It's going. It's going.
It started to go on time, then it had a serious malfunction, and it fell behind. Could that be a similar? I'm just saying, just putting it out there. I don't want to put all the bad juju out there, because I know EJ would be yelling at me for that. But
I was gonna make the joke that, was it really on time if the first mission had like the clock off by 11 hours or something?
Oh my God, you're right.
It was not on time even at the time. So just saying.
I know.
That's actually.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That was clever. That was very good.
That was very clever.
I can make clever jokes.
Yeah. By the way, I did see that I think they attached the heat shield for Artemis 3's capsule as well. So I think, I'm going to say it, on the NASA side, I think they're pushing ahead. I think the real question is going to be SpaceX with their HLS kind of version, their mock version that they're going to use, how ready that is. And then New Glenn having a pad online, because they have the spacecraft basically ready, but not the rocket. SpaceX has the rocket part basically working, but needs their HLS variant. And NASA's kind of just there. Basically, they're on their own timeline waiting for the other two. It's a very interesting juxtaposition of the two different providers needing to come together at the same time for the one NASA mission.
And I think for once, SLS is not going to be the one behind or holding the train up here, which is going to be quite strange, because I believe they just finished stacking the SRBs in High Bay 3 on Mobile Launcher 1 last week, I think it was. We saw the nose cones.
I thought that they had just started, but not fully stacked.
The boosters, yeah, I think they're almost fully stacked, because at least all the segments were moved inside. So I think if they're not fully stacked, like, they're almost there. All of these segments that have not been stacked are inside the VAB right now. As we saw the nose cones roll in last week. We should see that come in on the bottom left of your screen here at some point soon, unless this is live, which I thought this was a replay. But I think SLS is not going to be a hold up here. And Starship, I don't think Starship is going to be held up here, because They've said that the version of Starship that they're going to use for Artemis 3 is going to be a version 3 ship, lightly modified to have a docking adapter fitted to its nose cone, to work with Orion in docking and practice maneuvering there. Don't know if they're going to make any other mods to ship there. I would presume they will, although to what extent remains to be seen. But it's going to be largely a version 3 based vehicle, and we've seen how quickly they can move on those, and as we've seen from at least the past couple of weeks. So I don't think Starship is going to be the one holding it up either, unless they also suffer a catastrophic failure of sorts, which I hope to God they don't.
No, please, no.
Yeah, no.
We don't need any more of these.
No, we actually don't.
As the intro goes, yeah. By the way, Bideford coming in with $25 just to say Max is 100% correct. Thanks, Max.
Love you, Bideford.
Wow.
Max
Dang.
correctness instead of Max Evans. I tried another joke that didn't land well. I'm sorry.
Sort of like
Neither
ZQ3,
did, ZQ3.
on his first try.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many different landing jokes can we make there? Yeah.
What, 650?
So,
deny
as
it.
it says on the bottom of the ticker, before we move on, I do want to ask, do you think we will see a New Glenn flight in 2026?
No. I think we could see a return to flight for New Glenn as early as like February or March of next year, if everything goes right. But by the end of this year, I don't personally see it happening.
Alex, what do you think?
What the finger says.
Thank you to Kevin Matumbo. Yes.
No. Yeah, it's gonna be very, very tight to
Not
do it
in my house.
this year. They still need to build all of that. Like the tower
Yeah.
is basically just up to here, more or less, a little bit there.
Yeah.
Basically, all of the other things are off the tower, and they're supposedly being integrated and like modified on the ground to then stack it again. I want to see when that stacking happens. If it doesn't happen sometime in like October or something like that, I will say there's no way this is going to happen this year, because then I can imagine something along the lines of like November, more or less, to bring up everything online. You know, thinking about, you know, a launch within this year sometime in December, then bring out the vehicle in December, and then you do all the different testing and whatnot, try not to blow it up this time around, and then actually launch it. I think it's very tight for this kind of procedure. It's a lot.
I mean, it's going to be close. I think it might actually be doable, but if so, I could see it maybe launching in January. I think we might be able to see a vehicle out at the pad at least by December. Keep in mind, they also need to prove what went wrong with the last flight and prove that whatever fixes they made actually work. It'll also be interesting to see what the first payload is for a return to flight, because obviously they need to get Blue Moon Mark 1 up and tested as well. But do you want to risk such a significant vehicle on your first flight back? And if you're Amazon Leo, do you say, you know what, the heck with it, I want to try, you know, we need our satellites up there so we trust you? Or are they still going to say, let's see one more proof of concept before we stick a whole bunch of our satellites on there? Because I think that's going to be the question of who actually wants to be the first one to fly on New Glenn's return.
That's actually a good point to bring up, Sawyer, is that New Glenn technically, its last flight flown was mission failure. GS2 or Glenn Stage 2 had a very unhappy BE3U, or one of its two BE3Us was unhappy and was not able to deliver the payload to where it had to go. So technically, the last New Glenn flight was mission failure, and then they lost their next launch vehicle entirely and their launch pad. So New Glenn is kind of in a rough spot right now, whether or not they had the pad available right now or not. So I mean, that's what they wanted to prove with NG4, and I wonder if the next flight is going to still be named NG4, or if they're going to go right to NG5 because they lost the Flight 4 vehicle like entirely. Remains to be seen, but that is a very good point, Sawyer.
I feel like it's got to be NG5. You put NG4 in the past, it's already got bad voodoo. Move along.
One of the things that I saw that were interesting from Blue is that originally, their website for the different updates relating to the explosion and whatnot, it originally was NG4 Hotfire Update, the name of the thing, and now it's GS13 or something like that, Hotfire Update. So they changed it. They removed the NG4 reference, and they only put the name of the booster, not name even, like the serial number of the booster, in that case, which is interesting. Almost as if they wanted to use it somewhere else, right? That's the only piece of thing that makes me think maybe NG4 will be the next flight. Like it's gonna be NG4 basically. I mean, whatever payload, that's probably gonna be the proper name of that mission, right? Just like NG2 was Escapade and NG3 was Bluebird 7, right? All of those things. It's just third, fourth flight, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, most missions are just named after their payloads, unless it's Electron with Rocket Lab.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, theirs are very clever. So yeah, I mean, I guess technically with say AMO 6, we don't talk about the booster number or anything. It's just AMO 6, but
Yeah.
we'll see. But I mean, what you mentioned a good point there about the GS2 issue, and I know they've been working on coming up with ways to be able to test some of the hardware for it. They've got the test stand now that they have the agreement with NASA out at Stennis to do some testing there. But there's also some interesting paperwork that has popped up within the last month or so. So you may remember there was the Mila tracking station during space shuttle launches. You would hear them call out, acquisition Mila. That was the Merritt Island Launch Annex, which used to be the name before it became the Kennedy Space Center. So it was the Mila Merritt Island Launch Annex tracking station. That got demolished after the shuttle program because they don't use that anymore. The site's been kind of empty. So suddenly there's plans that we've seen pop up that they want to do some construction there. And the latest that we saw was that there are plans to put in 4 lightning towers around the area. Interesting. So you can see there it is at Mila, and there's the 4 different lightning protection system, LPS towers, that you see surrounding the old site. We also had some paperwork that was back in January of this year that was in one of the NASA reports. They have a whole thing of, changes they want to make to historic sites like LC-39A and less historic sites or non-historic, which for some reason they consider Mila. It mentioned specifically that they wanted to support quote-unquote cryogenic testing, and this was for Blue Origin. Could this be a new GS2 test area? Because it seems like, based off the height of the lightning towers, they seem a little too small for it to be GS1. Could we be seeing a new static fire stand, given that all they had for GS2 originally was kind of off to the side at 36A?
That's in very close proximity to the visitor complex to be an engine testing facility. I wonder if that's going to be just like Massey's for boosters and ships, except obviously just for GS2 upper stages of it just being like a cryo testing campaign, and that the most that they would do maybe is a spin prime without any actual ignition in the BE3Us. It's not, if that popped fully, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world for Rocket Park there off to the bottom right. Oh, thanks, Jay. And then the visitor complex, which was above that. But that still seems a bit like uncomfortably close to publicly accessible areas for an engine testing facility there. Maybe that's just me. Alex, what do you think?
I mean, I was looking at this the very first time that they proposed it. I didn't give it too much importance. But then when they announced the Stennis test site, then I thought, why carry all of this all the way to Stennis to do the GS2 testing when, that's the test stand, when you can just test it at the KSC, right? They were testing the second stages up until now at the launch pad, but obviously the launch pad is no more. They're trying to come back, as we were talking about in the earlier section. But yeah, the ideal situation would be that they wouldn't need any sort of reliance on the launch pad itself in order to be able to test the GS2s, the second stages of New Glenn. And so, to me, it makes actually more sense for it to be at the Kennedy Space Center. Now, it is true that it's probably too close for comfort. I think, Neat Pizza in the back channel says it's about 1.6 kilometers to the visitor center, so about a mile away. If they think that, because it's just the second stage, to be honest, it's not the full thing, maybe a mile might be good enough. And it's very similar to what we see, for example, Starship. It's a bigger rocket, right? And when they test just the ship, it's like a mile and a little bit more in terms of the blast danger area. It's not that much bigger in terms of the difference. And it's a way bigger stage than GS2 of New Glenn. So to me, it doesn't seem like it, it's close, but it doesn't seem to me like it's super dangerous for people around there. And if anything, hey, if you're going to the visitor center and there's a stage out there doing a static fire, that's a plus. You have more to see and experience of the Space Coast, right? You're gonna have probably a gazillion Starlink launches and Starmine launches with Starships, and then also in the background you're gonna have a few GS2s maybe firing off as well. So I think it's probably not that big of a deal. I was thinking maybe can we show back again the map that we're seeing of the Mila site, because there's another thing as well.
I do want to point something out interesting really quickly about the road and location you're talking about, the visitor complex there.
Yeah.
So you see that little kind of almost S-shaped road. That is now called State Road 321 because, 321 liftoff. That goes right by Blue's campus, and that is now the public entrance to the visitor complex. It used to be on that main road you see up there at the top, right by the Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit. That used to be the turn-in for the entrance. That's now only for buses. So the only way for people to get to the visitor complex is through that little side road that you see there extending off to it, off of 321. Having to close that down would limit traffic a lot. I don't think the visitor complex would be super on board with that. But at the same time, if we're talking how close it is to other testing, a reminder, you have the 2CAT, the second stage cleaning and testing facility, that's also right there. And we have seen that one have observations, shall we say, twice. One that blew off a door, one that blew a hole in the roof. So it's not like it's unusual to have incidents occur nearby. But when you add in cryogenics, it becomes a different story.
Well, and I wonder how this compares to Starship, because even though the BDA for a ship at Massey's is around a mile, they have a full tank of LOX, and only they have barely any methane on board compared to how much the tank can hold for its full capacity. Whereas I wonder if Blue likes to test GS2, even when they were just static firing it over at 36 back when they could do that. If they were testing with a full load of hydrogen, because remember GS2 the GS2 stage uses hydrogen, while the first stage uses methane, and hydrogen is a lot less. It's a lot less dense than methane, and it's also a lot more energetic, and it's also a lot more difficult to handle. And so all of those three together make it like among the most risky propellants to handle for a rocket. It's one of the reasons why Artemis 1 was such a pain in the butt to get off the ground, was that it kept leaking out through I almost said ground umbilical carrier plate, but that's not what they're called. Why am I blanking?
Tail service mast umbilical.
TSMUs. Yes, thank you, Alex. Because hydrogen kept leaking out of that, and that's what GS2 uses. And especially when they move on to the 9x4 variant of New Glenn, that has a much bigger H2 tank. And if something goes wrong there, and they are testing with a full load of H2, that's going to be quite an energetic event. And I wonder how much energy that would have and put out. Granted, it wouldn't be as big of an issue if they make it mandatory to be testing, say, after operating hours, like after 6 to 8 p.m. thereabouts in the evening, or just during the night, because traffic down that way at night is like next to zero. Like unless you're an employee of Blue or going to the Space Center, there's no traffic over there whatsoever. So I wonder if that's going to be one of the things that they implement if they do want to move that way with operations, if that's what it turns out to be. But I don't know. It's tough to justify them building a static fire stand that close to public roads, especially with their philosophy, it seems like, of wanting to test with full propellant tanks and using hydrogen on GS2.
Maybe not. Because I was going to say, one of the reasons why this explosion happened is because they used to use the full stack, the static fire, also as a wet dress rehearsal. SpaceX doesn't do that with Starship. They want to use it more conservatively. But if you can imagine, like, the only option for you to be able to do this sort of thing was actually fully loading the vehicle, then they will be in a much bigger risks, right? And so one of the things is, if they have to do it here, maybe they will be able to sort of say, okay, well, here it's not on the launch pad. We have actually more constraints, so we're playing it safer. And then they load only, like, the second stages, I think they were firing them only for like 30 seconds or something like that. They wouldn't even fire them for the 18 minutes or something like that they fire during flight. So it's not something that I think would be like set in stone that they really need to fully load the thing. It's just that for the operations that they had until now at LC-36, they seem to be doing it like that because they had no other choice. They had no other place in order to be able to test fully loaded stages and things like that. And so, I don't know. I was going to mention showing the map, because I was not done with my point, that if they want it, I was saying there's a river, what's it called? Yeah, the Indian River. I always mix them up, the Banana River and the Indian River. But yeah, the Indian River is like just a few 100 meters to the west of these. What are the chances that they also build like a dock or something? Like there's a little road going all the way to the west. What are the chances that they do something like that and then they trade off and avoid even going through roads? Because one of the problems that we were highlighting a few flame trenches ago was that the KSC is not great for road transport in general of big stages like GS2. And barging over to the other side might even be swifter. I see you, Max. I see you, Max. No, but really, like, you can even do that for Stennis. Like, you can even use that for barging over to Stennis. Like, they have the exploration park right to the east, so then you can roll over to the docks or something like that. Like, it would be nice, right, if they had that instead of having to go through the congested roads and things like that. It takes a little bit longer, but I mean, the upside is that you don't mess with anybody else, which is nice.
I mean, yeah, they've got that going for them in that case, but I don't know. I mean, I love the idea. It'd be cool to see the actual testing so close, and I'm sure all of the people that are going to go to the visitor complex and see it will go, oh my god, I saw a shuttle engine fire. They did a shuttle test.
God.
You know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Or if not, it's, oh my god, it's Starship. One or the other.
I mean,
but we'll see.
There is going to be a new Starship testing facility at KSC, Sawyer, right?
You see where I was going with that? I know you and I are on the same page, Max. Yes. Because Blue isn't the only one that's looking at a testing stage for its heavy lift rocket. SpaceX is doing the same. And of course, we know we have Roberts Road, where they've been building the Gigabay, which they'll eventually be assembling all of the rockets and boosters and stuff inside of it. But they need somewhere to test. And of course, for stage 1, they can just use the launch mount out at the pad. But for the ship itself, rather than the booster, the ship goes to Massey's over at SpaceX's facility in Starbase. Where are they going to go here at the Cape? Well, it's going to be part of something called Project Ignition. I'm going to be honest, I really dislike the name, but then again, it's just the name of the project. So this is the location. This was from our last flyover. You could see the area there with the kindly drawn arrow. Basically, this is where they want to create a Massey-style test site. Size comparison-wise, they're almost identical in terms of the amount of area that they will have. It's expected, based off of the paperwork, to include, quote, a static fire test stand and associated infrastructure to verify post-production testing of Starship and to support static fire tests, close quote. So that's about northeast of Roberts Road, on a road called Schwartz Road. May the Schwartz be with you. And it seems like we may have a Massey's there. I have to admit, this one is a little bit better because it's very much out of the way from all the other locations. You can see there, it's a whole splotch of land with basically nothing there.
Yeah.
I think that's a much smarter idea in terms of location. But what do we think now about a Project Ignition finally being built here, aka Florida Massey's?
I mean, it was only. Oh my God! Did he just change his background again?
Yeah, I'm mad with power. I told you.
Oh my God!
Yeah, there you go.
Gosh. What you need to do is position yourself right next to the arrow, so it's pointing you to say Project Ignition.
Hi, I'm
Other side.
Project Ignition.
Yeah, where the arrow is pointing to you. Just scoot down.
Your other left.
Whoop.
No, the arrow needs to be pointing
the other
to
way.
your
No,
head.
the
There
other
we
way.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Good grief!
Here, take a screenshot and all if you want.
Somebody clip that.
Good lord.
I mean, Sawyer, I think it was only a matter of time because if they do want to bring, well, they are planning on bringing Starship assembly to KSC at some point, obviously. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a whole gigabay existing there. We have seen plans for Star Factory 2.0, as we call it, which is about 1.5 times the size of that in Starbase. But we have yet to see actual environmental approval of it, let alone any groundbreaking of it. But going forward, even if they are bringing vehicles in from Starbase at that point, if they're just using it for storage, they're going to have to find a way to get them out of the way of Starbase as fast as possible, even if that means sending them to KSC without testing them. And if they are sent to KSC without being tested, they have to test them, whether it be with the engines or just with their cryo loads for a tank, for their tank structures. And that's primarily what Massey's is for, but it also serves as an area to static fire ships as well. It was only a matter of time. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a whole testing facility here at KSC, considering most of the launch cadence going forward is going to be from here in about 2 or 3 years once Pad 39 and Pad 37 are up in operational status. I think a majority of the launch cadence is going to be coming from Florida. And you need a lot more vehicles to support that. And when you have a lot more vehicles, you're going to need areas to store them and test them. So it only seems logical to have it here. And it's as you were saying, Sawyer, it's well out of the way of pretty much everything else at KSC, including the visitor complex and everything else. Which is great for safety, but not great for our cameras because I'm not quite sure where we would go to cover tests of sorts like this. But that's a problem that I guess we have to deal with down the line.
A lawn chair in Titusville and unlimited supply of pizza.
There's a lot of pizza here. That can be arranged. But I think long time coming, and it's nice to see an actual plan in place for it in terms of where it's going to be, how large it's going to be, and what it may be able to support given the area that it's going to be occupying. So yeah, I'm rather excited.
Here's the thing, though. It's going to be exciting, but they obviously want to start launching Starship from Florida potentially before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
This obviously I don't think is going to be ready before the end of the year. So when do we think this is going to be online? And more importantly, for all those interim flights before this is up and operational, are you going to test it over at Starbase and bring it over? Do you come up with a temporary jerry-rig test stand over here so that you can also test the ships once they arrive? What do you do for the time being so that you can test Florida Starships?
I mean, for booster, they can do both cryo testing and static fire testing on the pad. So that's not a question or a concern for booster really. But ship it is, and that is a good point to bring up. It's that until that's online, they have nowhere to put a ship for cryo testing or static fire testing because they can't exactly static fire it on top of a booster. right? That's just a terrible idea. Especially for a whole minute. I don't think the booster is going to survive that. So they may just build a stand somehow over at 39 in a small area to support it, or they'll just test everything at Starbase at Massey's and then ship it over and then verify it via like a wet dress rehearsal with a full stack. They could also, in theory, spin prime it on top of a booster, but that's also kind of a bad idea, because if you're going to introduce a fuel and oxidizer mixture on top of an already fully fueled super heavy booster, if that goes wrong, you're looking at a very bad day. So it's, I don't know, but that also begs the question, like, are they really going to be even targeting launching out of Florida this year anymore? Because the last 2 version 3 flights have not exactly gone according to plan for booster, and that is a very crucial part of the version 3 flight cadence plan or equation there, because I think they would have liked to have caught a booster and maybe reflown one on Flight 14 by now if they could have helped it. And the fact that they haven't, I think, has delayed the inaugural Florida launch by at least 2 or 3 missions. So I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they come up with a star stool type thing, because I know people saying, "Oh yeah, you could just test it over at Massey's and then ship it over." But how do you know that, given the waves and the bumps and everything, that something might not happen on the way over? Would you rather static fire it here? That way you know once it's static fired, its next location is out to the pad, rather than having to be, lowered, barged over, raised again, moved around, and tested.
And not
Hey,
to mention,
so-
go ahead.
What did they do with Falcon 9s?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's different over the road versus the sea, because yes, they do test those at McGregor, which you can watch McGregor Live 24/7. But
I will say, I made the point, and sort of the joke, but also not joke, that the road is probably worse, because you got bumps and potholes and all that stuff, but also Texas roads, Florida roads. Yeah, not very safe for the booster. It's ironically the boosters have had Falcon 9 boosters have had quite a few incidents on the road in the past, namely certain boosters hitting bridges. Yeah.
Which booster was that again? Was that 1077?
I think so. Yeah, which is
okay,
now
it was.
30 flights, which is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
But
that was a booster I saw being manufactured in Hawthorne. I'm like, oh, cool! I'll get to see that one when it launches. And then I saw that one crashed into a bridge, and I saw the number. I'm like,
yeah.
well, here goes that one. But
I mean,
they're still flying it.
To counterpoint that, Alex, Falcon 9 was designed to be transported horizontally on roads, and that's where its dimensions were dictated by, was being able to be transported by road.
But
Super Heavy and Starship were not exactly meant to be transported horizontally.
maybe the original ones, they just changed to version 3. What is to say that they haven't done that change also including horizontal transport in mind? You know what I mean here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that is also, in fact, the little that we've seen of the transport of all of the transport hardware indicates that at the very least the ship will be able to go mostly flight ready. Maybe they need to touch a bit the flaps and the especially the thermal protection system, but they can do that inside the Gigabay. The Gigabay is being outfitted, and Kiko Donchev has been talking about using that to pull vehicles vertical and things like that. I feel like, at least for the ships, they will not really need a dedicated static fire area until they're going into like much higher cadence. There's also the point to be made that I just compared this to Falcon 9. Falcon 9 boosters only static fire ahead of their first flight. If they're going to be applying that kind of lessons to Starship, then it will mean that ships only get static fired once, and then they never get static fired unless they really, really need to check something going on with the plumbing or something going on with the engines or something like that. Because it's assumed that flight is already its testing. It flew, so it can go. Let's just inspect it and put it back on the pad. And so that's sort of the philosophy that they use with Falcon 9 boosters. I will guess in the future that'll be very similarly. The boosters, super heavies, it seems like at least during the transport, they will be able to have already had a cryo, but maybe not a static fire. Like the static fire will probably have to be at 39A once that happens, but they have that possibility at the very least. I think, Sawyer, to answer your question of like when do we think this is gonna come online, the earliest I can see that is like late next year. Like they're right now getting the approvals, right, for all of the environmental stuff and everything. It usually takes a few months to get there. Probably they start clearing the area later this year, and then they start putting all the commodities somewhere around summer. Introduce there a little bit of leeway, and end of next year, more or less, I can see that happening, which will be way faster, to be honest, than the masses. But to get like a minimum of an activity there, maybe next year, like late next year, could probably be okay for that.
And there's an interesting distinction because we were talking about the proximity to roads and things with Blue's site over there by State Road 321. Piejo or Plejo, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that music, is saying, Max, wait, is that like a public road or NASA, SpaceX, etc. only? I think it's worth noting the difference of where Blue's is versus where SpaceX's is.
Yes, so State Route 321 is a completely publicly accessible road. You don't need a badge, you don't cross any gates. As long as you turn right to go to the visitor complex, if you're going down the 405 causeway, going east, and turn south onto State Route 321, if you're going that way, you can just drive down Route 321 and go right by Rocket Park and see all of Blue Origin's campuses. So that is a completely publicly available road. Whereas Roberts Road and where Project Ignition is going to be, that is all behind the gates at the Kennedy Space Center. You cannot just drive in there and go have a look around as much as you would like to. That is a completely separate piece of property and requires completely different access. So I think that's a very good distinction to have there, because I know of some stories of people who have tried to drive into KSC before and it's not gone very well. So please don't try that. If you're not an employee or badged for the Kennedy Space Center, please don't try and drive in, because the guards will not be happy with you, and you will not get very far if you try.
Yeah, that's a big no. That's
Yeah.
for sure. They have guns. Just saying.
It's just like you don't want to be messing with the officers there and security. Like that's just a bad idea. Don't do that.
Yeah, just follow the rules. That's all. But that's also why people were saying, like, well, what about views from us? And just get an agreement with Cape Canaveral to put some cameras somewhere. It's not that easy.
I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that simple.
Is this another bad time to also propose what I said about the New Glenn site? I don't know if you can show the full screen here, but there's a road, and then there's the Indian River right behind there. How about putting another dock here as well? Huh? And you'll thank me later and just read the instructions on all of the different barges that they want to use. Isn't that nice? They could use the waterways already present at the Cape to do all of this.
I mean, maybe, but they already have the turn basin available, and that's already not that far from Roberts Road. Yeah, but it'll take a long time to get the environmental approvals and to dredge it, to build it. Like that'll take a long time.
Yeah, I mean, here's a comparison, by the way, of what we're talking about here, where these are. I think Jay has it from one of Alex's X posts. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a relation of where Mila site is at the bottom and Project Ignition at the top. Weirdly, again, the bottom, public land. The top, protected as part of the Kennedy Space Center
government
NASA
property
site. Yeah. Top is government property, bottom is not.
That road was very clear at the time when I took the screenshot for it being 8 a.m.
I mean, visitor complex time opening. I don't know if there was not a launch that day.
8 a.m. on what day?
Yellow. That was on the day of the eclipse, actually, on August 13th.
I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was. Yeah,
Wednesday. Yeah.
But that's the reference point. So I'm sure we'll have to find a spot for our cameras, because from the press site, that's behind the trees.
Yeah, and so I wonder if there's going to be a way to. I'm sure we can find some way to get y'all views of that. We're going to try. But yeah, the green road there, the S turning road there, that's State Route 321, highlighted in green there, and that is completely publicly accessible. But also, don't try and drive into like Blue's campus. Who also has a campus over there? Is it OneWeb?
OneWeb?
Yeah, OneWeb. Yeah,
Airbus?
well, OneWeb has buildings over there. Blue has buildings over there. Please don't try and drive in there. Like just don't do that. But the road itself, you can just drive up and down it. You can access it.
Yeah, also not a spot where you can stop to watch launches. So
Nope.
Just pointing that out.
Nope. You will get booted out pretty fast.
Yep. So interesting. We'll see when that goes online, and if they're able to static fire in the rain there.
Yeah, probably.
Converted hydrogen, saying my bull terrier is named Mila and wants to hear Sawyer say her name again. There you go, Mila. Random
Just
fact.
perking up, probably.
Random fact. First car I ever got, I nicknamed my GPS Mila. So like the voice that tells you, in 100 yards, turn left or whatever. I named her Mila. Because yes, I was a shuttle geek, and yes, it was my car was named Endeavor, and this was 2011, so shuttle was still going. And then Bideford coming in with $25 more of support, thank you, and Converted Hydrogen there with the 50 Australian, also appreciated. Bideford saying, since I praised Max for being so correct, I want to say this morning I was correct about Alex also being tired. Sorry, Sawyer, but this is one of my favorite trio. If a quad, EJR Ryan isn't also on.
That's from the stream earlier when I said she's talking about us being tired. I'm not tired. And you said no, she's referring to me. Remember that?
I
No.
remember it almost like it was this morning.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
And
that.
I said she's referring to all three, and yeah, she's saying that I was right. That she was referring to all three. I was not tired. I am a little bit tired now, but I'm okay with that. We're having fun here.
I'm sure chat is tired about us not talking about the big giant floating ship in the room that is Starship. We've got a lot of good Starship news this week. That's why I wanted to make sure we have an entire hour to talk about it, folks. Trust me, I promise you, we always get to Starship. We always give it enough time. We've got the time for it, so let's talk Starship. Max, where are we starting?
We're going to start at Starboat or Ship 40 or the enormous elephant in the room that is just screaming, address me. Also Alex's backdrop there.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, like one of the recent posts from SpaceX showing this photo, and there's one other one with crew sort of more in the foreground with ship, are among like some of the greatest photos ever taken. Because like it's let's talk about Ship 40 first. So pump the brakes there. So it's essentially Ship 40 has been in the waters of the Indian Ocean for the past 3.5, almost 4 weeks since it splashed down after concluding its flight on Starship Flight 13. And as you can see, here is some drone footage of it on its slip and landing burn into the Indian Ocean, where we are so used to it hitting the water and then tipping over and then having the nose cone of the ship blow up. But Ship 40 is the first ever ship to not have that happen. And SpaceX has been trying to seize the opportunity to recover it and bring it to shore or wherever they want to bring it. As you can see there, didn't blow up when we all thought it would, and we all kind of lost our minds because of it. But it has been a pretty tedious few weeks. It's been in a battle of not tides, but currents and weather. I think at one point it drifted a couple 100 miles away from the LZ because of currents and weather. It's been with vessels Go Australis and the Norman Ranger. At one point, it had these fenders on it to try and have it towed like this, but SpaceX has since abandoned that method, and they used a different method to tow that back in. I'll come back to that in a minute. But after about 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, we saw both vessels change trajectory towards a certain little island west of Australia and south of Indonesia called Christmas Island. And we were all thinking that this may be the first stop Ship 40 is going to take on its route to wherever it needs to go. And we thought that was going to be the west coast of Australia. And since then, as of August 18th, Ship 40 has arrived at Christmas Island, being towed by the Norman Ranger and Go Australis, and it was being towed via a rope being tied around one of the engine bells on the sea level engines, as you can see there on the bottom of your screen. And by the way, we had a viewer, a fan of ours, send in some photos for us to look over and just gawk and admire and show on stream. So, sir, I don't know if I can pronounce your name correctly, so I'm not going to try. But there's his watermark on the bottom right hand side of the screen there. As you can see, like there's some corrosion. One of the RVAC engine bells is kind of in rough shape. It looks kind of gross, but also the fact that Ship 40 has survived in the water for so long in such rough seas and hasn't capsized or like buckled is kind of remarkable and really shows just how robust Starship vehicles are. But it has since arrived in the area of Christmas Island. It is currently bobbing off the coast in the company of some other vessels, and we were all left wondering what's next for it, whether they were going to bring it to the west coast of Australia and analyze it on shore, or if they were going to scuttle it. We thankfully have answers to that now. As of yesterday, SpaceX, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday, SpaceX had a post up and ready saying that teams had made it to Christmas Island and that the end goal is to bring Ship 40 back to Starbase. Back to Starbase, where it had originally flown from, to conduct additional analysis on the vehicle and I guess bring it back home, which I think is poetic, because not only is it the first ever Starship upper stage to survive re-entry and survive splashdown, they want to bring it back home and in the company of all other future vehicles, and we hope in the rocket garden, assuming it makes it there. Which begs the question: how is Ship 40 going to be returned to Starbase? We have an answer for now, because a heavy lift vessel called Forte has done from I think it was Dampier in Indonesia, and it is a very, very large semi-submersible vehicle that is meant to transport larger vessels. And so it looks like it's heading in the exact direction of Christmas Island. And given its size and dimensions compared to Ship 40 and how much quicker they can presumably get it across the ocean compared to towing it by a single Raptor, we presume this is going to be its transport back to Starbase. Now, that begs the question, what route are they going to take to get it there, and how are they going to secure it to the ship first and foremost? Don't know how they're going to secure it. I really don't. I think that they're going to use methods that are similar to how they're going to be transporting ships on You'll Thank Me Later, which is SpaceX's transport barge to get vehicles from Starbase to Florida right now. But they're over 10,000 miles as the crow flies away from Starbase right now. They are quite literally on the other side of the planet. So that leaves them two options. They are either going to cross the Pacific Ocean and go through the Panama Canal, or they can cut south of Africa and go around the Cape of Good Hope and cross the Atlantic. Both of which are very time-consuming endeavors. I think that is fair to say. And I think based off of a post here from Sal, who is an incredible expert on all things maritime, he has been predicting that Forte's arrival to Christmas Island is around August 23rd, and assuming it takes a week to prepare and load Starship 40 and depart Christmas Island on August 30th or thereabouts at a speed of roughly 12 knots, that would put a rough arrival to Starbase from its current distance around middle of October, which is a very long time away. But also, thanks to Jay zooming out here, you can see kind of the scale of the problem here in terms of how far away from home Ship 40 is right now. It's got a long way to go before SpaceX gets it back to Starbase, but they're making the effort. They're going to try, and I think this is going to be among some of the best stories ever told in the history of spaceflight. Because not only Ship 40 is the first ever Starship upper stage to survive re-entry, but it's also the first ever full rocket upper stage to survive in general. Because Falcon 9 Falcon 9's upper stages are deorbited and burn up. Same with almost every other rocket that's flown, including fairings as well. Starship is the entire Starship. It is designed to carry payloads and eventually people one day, all in one structure, and the entire structure has survived in one piece. So it'll be the first ever rocket to be fully 100% recovered at some point. Caveat there, I'm catching myself because they haven't caught a booster yet. But the first ever fully recovered rocketry upper stage, which is going to be remarkable. I'm still kind of like I have to catch myself at times thinking this is if this is actually true or not, because this is such a profound moment in the Starship program, let alone in the history of spaceflight. We've been waiting for years to see if Starship could make it this far, and it certainly has. But now I want to turn the conversation back towards Sawyer and Alex now, because I've done enough yapping. I want to know what you guys will think in terms of what route it's going to take, and if Ship 40 is going to survive the journey, because either way, no matter how they put it, it's going to be a long trek home.
Yeah, I want to point out that the map that Jay just had up, that was another one from Sal's post from WGOW Shipping, which
Yes,
awesome, by the way. So these are the two options. You can see the first one there that goes around Cape of Good Hope, down by South Africa, around by Senegal, and then cuts across by the Bahamas, north of Cuba to Starbase. If we go to the next one, that's the other option, which is going the other way. And you can see that one taking the long route, going up by the Philippines, down by Taiwan, Japan, going by the Baja Peninsula, and going through the Panama Canal to then go between Cuba and that area to get there. According to his estimations, if it goes via the Panama Canal, it'll take approximately 46 days, so that would be October 14th. If it goes by the Cape of Good Hope, that would be approximately 48 days, so somewhere around the 16th or 17th of October. So it's not talking that much of a difference. The real question is, how rough are the seas going to be?
Yeah.
Because Cape of Good Hope can be very rough, as can be the North Pacific. So I'm really interested to see whether to. Plus, then you have to go through the Panama Canal, and it's such a big ship that you're going to have to use the large lane, and it's going to take time, and it costs extra money.
not to mention prying eyes in that area as well.
Yeah. I don't know which way they would take. But I guess it's a good conundrum to have if you're SpaceX at this point, of find a way to be able to get this vessel back. Although I know if you're SpaceX for Ship 41, you're saying, please destroy the thing. We don't want to deal with this again.
I mean, like, carry a gun the next time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like it's the first of its kind, and for that, I think they're willing to put out the effort and the time to bring it home. But like, I want to say it might be easier to bring it through the Pacific, because the waters usually are calmer there in more general terms. Once you get towards the archipelago of southern Alaska, there, those seas can be pretty rough depending on time of year. And we are entering the latter half of the year, which is when weather can sort of begin to turn in that area. But on the other hand, if you cut around Africa, you're getting near towards the waters in between Africa and Antarctica, which are notoriously some of the most, like, the worst seas on the planet. Granted, nowhere near as bad as the Drake Passage in between the most southern tip of South America and Antarctica, because that is the roughest patch of ocean on the planet there. But still, like, it's going to be a hell of an effort either way. I think that's, pardon the language, but I think that's the easiest and most realistic way to put it. But I feel much better about them trying to transport it on a semi-submersible vehicle with enough surface area to hold it, rather than trying to tow it through the water, because that was never going to work in the first place, because they could only manage, like, what, 1 or 2 knots, which is that's like slower than walking pace, basically.
That's not very fast.
Oh my god.
Alex, what do you think?
I mean,
about all of this.
I already gave you the thumbs down, but I think it might not matter too much, as Sal's post was talking about. Like, He estimates that maybe around middle of October at the end of the day, either way. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about how specifically they bring it back, just that they bring it back, right? And I also don't understand much about shipping, so I'll leave that to the people that actually know about that. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about, I think it was in the last Flame Trench, so 2 weeks ago, because we didn't have one last week. I think a lot of people were asking us, like, why even care about recovering Ship 40 if they're gonna have a catch soon? And it's like,
Why not?
I was gonna say maybe not a catch soon. I'm just preemptively sort of hinting at the next topic, but yeah, yeah, there's the fact that as well that I made the point that why not just like have more data. You don't stop recovering these things. I mean, they caught a booster and they still brought Booster 13's engine section to shore, right? So and like even Booster 11 engine section and even the hot staging ring as well, within a month of getting Booster 12 caught in the chopsticks. So why not just gather more data, more data, more better, as we used to say, right? So yeah.
And so, like, assuming it makes it back to Starbase in one piece, and they're able to move it and transport it in a way that's safe for the vehicle, and they're able to bring it back to the production site, what then? Because they are building a brand new rocket park right next to the factory.
We'll need to change the flaps probably because one of them fell off and the other one is heavily damaged. 'Cause, yeah, you can see that that they tried to tow it from the flaps from the catch points, and that probably slipped or something, and it didn't work. You can see also damage on the tiles. Some people, I'm stealing your job, Sawyer. I'm sorry, but I saw people in the chat also asking, like, how will they know the things that, like, why even recover it anymore? It's damaged and everything. It's like, well, you know the damage that it got from the water. So you study the thing, and then you remove from the equation the damage from the water, and now you have only the things that it endured during the space flight, right? Like, you still have some data out of that. They still had also visual data. Elon pointed that out earlier this month, of the tiles and everything. They have lots of data. They can collect more if they actually have the thing in their hands out there at Starbase. So why not? Yeah, sure, do it.
I think the argument could be made that any flown recoverable hardware is infinitely more valuable than just numbers on a spreadsheet or just look on a screen. I think that's something that is going to be invaluable for Starship going forward.
Plus, it can go right next to SN15 in the Rocket Garden, as we got from the technical update.
I mean,
that was
Yeah, but also, like, Booster 12 is still around, and that was the first ever booster to be caught, and that was the booster that was caught in Flight 5. Wonder what they're gonna do with that, or what their plans are for the rocket park that they're building next to the factory, like, in terms of what they're gonna have on display there, how they're going to have stuff on display. I would like to think that Ship 40 will have its own area there somehow, because it deserves it. It's the first ever fully recovered Starship upper stage. I think that is a monumental achievement itself.
I mean, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to be on display.
Dude, look at it. Like,
would you?
I was fully convinced. I was fully convinced, genuinely, that it was not going to survive the rough seas. I was fully convinced that a rogue wave. God, these shots are so gorgeous. I was fully convinced that the ship was going to buckle somehow under like a rough wave, and there'd be a lot of water intrusion. And due to some corrosion on some parts, even though it is stainless steel, not all of it is stainless steel. There could be corrosion in just the wrong parts, allowing water ingress and capsizing it and having it sent under. I was fully convinced that was going to happen, but she's still kicking. She's still floating. She's still mostly in one piece. There is some damage. There's some battle scars from flight and also from battling with the waves. The waves have given it even a mark or like a version 1 style TPS haircut there, which is kind of weird.
Instead of the Vulcan
I mean seriously, like
now.
Like, compare this to Ship 31. Like, it looks very similar in terms of how its heat shield is. But dude, like any flown recoverable spaceflight hardware, it's always better to have that around than to not have it.
Yeah,
And I think that was always
this would be the first flown Raptor 3s to be returned.
also true. Also true.
With rust and
Yes.
all.
Corrosion, rust, and all. Yep. Dented
Yeah.
bells, and and again, they towed it to Christmas Island like that. They had a literal rope tied around one of the sea level engine bells, and that's how they were actually towing it to Christmas Island, which is kind of funny, but also like that poor engine bell, that poor engine.
Oh, it has seen better days. But what can I say? You know, the ship got a little crispy, and then it got a little wet and soggy. But speaking of crispy, crispy, like crispy, gifting
God.
20 red team memberships. No, that's what it says for the name.
Oh, I know.
But even more crisp than that is Crispy going to tips.nasaspaceflight.com and putting in a $200 tip that just says boop.
Dude. Holy crap.
Just boop.
Just boop. Alex, boop the snoot then. We need to boop the snoot. To boop. I meant of the ship, but that too.
Hang on. There. It's just that I have to do it the opposite way. There.
There you go.
There you go.
There.
We have booped it. Crispy, thank you so much for that. It's very, very generous and beyond appreciative. So thank you.
I never know what to say when support that big comes in. Genuinely, like I'm lost for words. Thank you. Saying thank you doesn't do enough, if I feel, but that's all I can muster right now. Is just thank you, dude.
And going the
Appreciate
extra
you.
effort to support us even more directly by going to tips.nasaspaceflight.com too. Thank you.
Yes.
But we still appreciate everybody. Mike Kornblatt becoming a PadRat member, also very much appreciated. We're not just saying, oh, yay, appreciate it, and clicking through. We genuinely mean it. We couldn't do this without you guys. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking with you. That's why we have all the different cameras that we have at all the different locations and cover as much as we can. It's because of that. So thank you. Rosebud saying, the data is one thing, but this is historical. Yes.
It is.
For history. And then Bidver saying, she, as in Starship 40, still looks promising. Keeping my fingers crossed that she makes it back to Starbase.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. It would be amazing to see Ship 40 at Starbase and see what they can do with it. Maybe salvage a part or two to fly again. Just throwing it out there.
Stick in the Rocket Garden or in Rocket Park. Honestly, like the rest of it just deserves to rest in peace for eternity. Honestly.
Yeah, Ship 40.
Let her rest.
You've done your job. Now it's time for Ship 41.
I do remember saying that they could bring it back to Starbase if they had enough patience and with enough time. And that's basically what they're doing here. Like, they're taking it slow. They're saying, okay, let's move it here. Let's move it there. Let's charter this ship and this other thing. And like, they're methodically getting to that point of, finally being able to bring it back to Starbase. And that's sort of the deal, right? Like, just slowly but surely, they might get there. So it's still more than a month from now, but yeah.
Let's try that transition again. So yeah, Ship 40, we'll see what they end up doing with it. But we have Ship 41 out there right now, right, Max?
Yes. Hopefully not for much longer, because Ship 41 just recently completed, or we hope completed, its static fire campaign after rolling out to Massey's earlier this week. Long time coming. Began with a single engine test, right to a single engine test. There was no spin prime or test of the igniters. They went right to a single engine test, simulating the in-space relight for a deorbit burn, which is going to be incredibly important for orbital missions going forward. So they did that a couple of nights ago, and then last night, almost this morning, we were live for a very long time. They then performed a 6-engine static fire of all 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea level and 3 vacuum optimized. And both tests were followed up by posts from SpaceX with footage and language indicating that the test was successful. So what's next for Ship 41 is we should be expecting it to roll back to the production site, I believe tonight. I think there's still a closure in place. I'll have to double check that. But it'll be returning back to the production site for pre-flight checkouts before heading back to the pad. Which then begs the question, what the heck is happening with Booster 21? Not entirely sure yet. We would like to think that it's going to be, or that it is currently receiving engines and hardware necessary for its own static fire campaign, because that's what's next for it. It crowd tested at Massey's a few weeks ago, if not last month now, I think it was. We saw it during, we saw it crowd testing actually during our time in Starbase for Flight 13. So maybe we'll see it at the pad next week for a static fire. Maybe not. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But they're not really in that big of a rush anymore because we have a new net from a post or a slide from a Cadena and Compass presentation indicating that the new no earlier than target for Starship Flight 14 is now net September 15th of this year. So a little over 2 week slip compared to August 28th, which was the last net or no earlier than date. But not entirely surprising, honestly. Like, I want them to take their time with this one and make sure that they get it right. But there has been a decent amount of people kind of up in arms in the past couple of days about Flight 14 because Elon quite publicly said after Ship 40 made it down to the ocean that they may try to recover Ship 41 via a tower catch on Flight 14 if nothing showed up in the post-flight data analysis. But it was the last couple of days where Elon also said that they may try and catch a ship in the next few months. So he didn't outright say they're not going to catch a ship on Flight 14. But if we want to put two and two together and utilize this current net of Flight 14 and what he said, saying a few months, that would more align probably with Flight 15 or 16 down the road, maybe in the October or November timeframe. So yeah, a little. I mean, it's not surprising, honestly, at least for me. I want them to get ship 100% right, especially when they get it to an orbital state before they try and bring it back to the launch site for a catch. Because up to this point, Starship has flown solely suborbital trajectories on purpose. For in the event that if they lost control of the ship, they knew where it was going to come down and not pose a threat to those on the ground. Once you go orbital, though, that changes the game entirely, and they want to make sure that the ship is essentially game for those operations, and make sure that the Raptor can perform its a deorbit burn successfully, and that the ship can maneuver itself successfully over populated areas to come back for a recovery. But as far as we are aware, from the wording so far, still from Elon, Flight 14 will still be orbital, although the language on the single engine test post from SpaceX, it didn't outright say Flight 14 was still going to orbit, but it said that the in-space real burn was important for upcoming orbital missions. So a bit still left to talk about with Flight 14 in terms of the vehicles, but I think at this point it's safe to assume that they're not going to be recovering either ship or booster on this flight, which I don't blame them for whatsoever. Again, I want them to get it right. So that's where we're at right now with Flight 14 is the current net of September 15th, and the ship is hopefully done with its own with its own static fire campaign. And I'm actually seeing it in the back channel now that there is a road delay from Massey's to production tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the window closure from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So that was, I think, at some point tonight or like early tomorrow morning, like midnight to 4 a.m. But that has since changed, obviously. After ship, the big question mark is what's going to happen with booster, and are they still trying to out of focus there? Are they still trying to send ship orbital on Flight 14? So with that, I want to bring I want to bring Sawyer and Alex back into the conversation. taking the vehicle catches out of the equation here for a moment on Flight 14, what can we expect in terms of mission profile for Flight 14?
Well, Alex, we just recently saw some new FCC licensure. Again, it's about frequencies, which aren't always the most
Yeah.
accurate, but it at least gives us a hint as to what might be happening, right?
Yeah, I'll go first with what I think might happen, which is I think it's still gonna be an orbital flight. When Elon made those comments in the earnings call earlier this month, he was hedging a lot with the catch thing, but he did say Flight 14 will be our first flight to fly our version 3 Starlink satellites to operational orbit. Like, he did not say maybe we'll go to orbit or something. No, he said Flight 14 will be our first flight to fly our version 3 Starlink satellites to operational orbit. And so I think just because of that, they very much said, okay, let's go into orbit. The catch, he has always been mostly... Oh, I'm being told in the back channel, by the way, that we have actually that thing. Maybe I wait for you to ready that, Jay, but I'll keep going with what I'm saying, which is the catch side of things. Every single time he was a bit more doubtful. Like, he was trying to be more cautious with that, and I think Wineshot will actually also reaffirm the whole thing of launching operational satellites in this next launch and things like that. Whereas, the catch side of things, it was always treated as a maybe sort of thing. So I think it's going to be an orbital flight, and it's probably going to be another ship splashdown. In that case, it could be somewhere in the Pacific, it could be somewhere in the Indian Ocean. They have multiple different landing areas for that. They obviously will need license modification of their launch license, but they've modified that multiple times in the past, and it's not been quite a huge deal. In fact, ahead of Flight 13, they actually needed a flight launch license modification. They got that a few days before, and it was fine. But yeah, in terms of, because I see comments, I'm reading chat, in terms of like, do we think that it is September 15th now because they're getting all of those regulatory side of things and everything? I'll just say, this ship, if it was actually on time, it should have static fire about 2 weeks ago, and it didn't, because of how we've tracked the previous ships, right? When things go ahead of time, a lot of people always claim that we're wrong. I'm just gonna say, we were very optimistic about this ship. Perhaps I, at least, was very optimistic of it perhaps static firing 2 weeks ago. I was actually worried that it might impact my travel and everything because of coverage for this. Thanks to Sawyer, Max, and all the other people for covering that. But yeah, it ended up happening 2 weeks after it was supposed to happen. If it had followed the previous flights, normally we always say, oh, it's gonna do it faster, right? Because they're always improving their turnarounds and all their test campaigns and things like that. This time it didn't. This time it actually took a little bit longer. And so I think perhaps there was something else going on Flight 13, and perhaps Ship 40 might have actually given them the clue of what to improve and what things to tweak here and there in terms of what to do with Flight 14 and Ship 41. The booster, we saw on Flight 13 that they can basically roll it out the week before, do the static fire, and then go for a launch. Although they had a scrub at the time, and so they had to delay another week. But, if they were going for the original, sort of semi-original August 28th launch date, that will mean it will have rollout already by now, right? And done the static fire and everything. So I think the delay to September is just basically them needing more time in order to be able to go ahead with that. But let's listen into the Elon thing. Yeah, sorry.
Topics separately. So with Starship, we completed 2 successful flights of Starship V3 in the past 90 days. Flight 13 demonstrated core capabilities necessary to achieve an orbital mission and return to Starbase for catch. And on Flight 14 will be our first flight to fly our version 3 Starlink satellites, our communication satellites, to operational orbit. We will try to actually catch the first and the second stage of Starlink V3 this year, and we could possibly catch the ship as soon as the next flight. And it's difficult to actually explain to most people just the incredible significance of Starship. And I think perhaps describing it in terms of tonnage to orbit is a good way to appreciate the magnitude of the impact Starship will have on.
And so, yeah, that was what Elon had said. Sorry, I don't have a return feed for that, so I didn't know when to come back. But that's basically what he has said. Yeah, the flight 14 will be orbital flight with, you know, actually fly the version 3 starting satellites, whereas the other part about catching, it was like, well, later this year or something like that. Actually, we might try to do that on the next flight, like might try, possibly catch, and things like using that kind of wording in order to be able to be as cautious as possible. Later in the earnings call, he also alluded to actually having regulatory approval to do the catch, so that's another thing as well. I think it's gonna be the next flight after this one. They might want to have another one, especially if they needed some extra work on the ship, on the booster as well. As I said, there's a lot of indications here that they had delayed their test campaign relative to what we had expected if they had actually been on time and basically copied the timelines of the previous vehicles, right? So they're going a little bit longer in that sense, and that might be an indication there that they have a few things to still work on the vehicles, despite a very successful Flight 13 that we saw.
And I don't know if we actually talked about what I was hinting at earlier, is that we had the FCC licensure update that came out that it involves frequencies and things like that for communications. But it does say this SGA is necessary to authorize backup frequencies for ship vehicle communications on Starship Flight 14 launching from Starbase, Texas. Application includes an orbital second stage. So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that they want to go orbital. The things are in there for them to be able to go orbital. But I think that we are not going to see a catch on this one based off of what Elon said with a couple of months. But I wouldn't be surprised if the booster succeeds on this flight, which is yet to do for V3. If they get the splashdown where they want it to be, and at the correct speed this time, not careening into it, I think we could see a double catch on the following flight. Given the ship has proven itself pretty well, if we get to orbit on this flight, all goes well, comes back, proves the ship works, great. If they can prove the booster works once, knowing SpaceX is going to say, cool, good enough, we've got timelines to meet, let's go for a double catch on Flight 15.
Yeah. I mean, I was the very first one on the Flight 13 live stream after the flight happened. I was the very first one that said, yeah, catch it, catch the next one, catch Ship 41 on Flight 14.
You were.
Like,
You
but
were.
hey, if they determine they don't want to, or that there's something else that they want to work on and things like that, like if they determine that they're not catching, then they're not catching. Like, I'm fully ready to assume that. I was super optimistic about Flight 14. Oh, let's see a ship catch. Like, I'm the very first one in that bandwagon. And then I'm like, well, if you're not doing it, cool. You have your reasons, right? Like, they are the engineers. They're the ones with the hardware, with the data. And so they're the ones that are best to assess all of this. Same deal with, to be honest, I was sort of in an opposite situation with Booster Catch when they said, Elon just said out of the blue, oh, Flight 5 will be a catch of the booster. I was like, there's no way. They're gonna delay that to Flight 6. It's just not gonna happen. Booster 12 is not getting caught or whatever. And then they actually caught it, right? Like, they actually went and did the thing. And so it was like, okay, yeah, then cool. So sometimes the things just go the other way as well. And that's okay. It's just they have the data. And on the case of Booster 12, they felt comfortable with that. And they went ahead. Hey, if there's something that they found out, even though it was all great and awesome and everything, maybe the FAA is asking for more data, or maybe they themselves don't feel okay with all of this. That's fine. Take the time you need. You really need this thing to work. And if that means maybe very short term things gonna get a little bit delayed, right, on some of the milestones and chip reuse and things like that. But if that means later down the line you get things faster because you get more data and more learnings and everything that you can apply to future vehicles, go ahead, do it. Because far term is much better than looking at the very short term, which is usually not great.
I still can't get over how they were like literally 1 second away from aborting the catch on Flight 12
Oh, yeah, the ignition.
and sending it right into the flats. Still one of the greatest days in spaceflight history, that was.
You mean for Flight 5, not Flight 12?
Flight 5, yes.
Yeah, of course the catches were on Flights 5, 7. Take that, internet memes.
Stop
was
it.
5, 7.
Stop it. Did I say Flight 12? I meant Booster 12.
Yeah, you did. That's okay.
I meant Booster 12. I meant Booster 12.
That's all right. Don't worry. Starship Flight 13 is no
hard.
earlier than September 15th for the ticker earlier, so it's fine. And with
That's
that,
true.
you and I are no longer friends.
Yay.
It's all right. I'm now probably
Blame
not
Jay
friends
for
with Jay
that.
after that comment, but I'm waiting for him to type it in the back channel that we are not friends.
He is typing right now. I wonder what he's going to say.
Yeah.
No
No
comment from
comment.
Jay.
All right.
So here's the question from Overly Curious Cat, who's saying, if SpaceX lands Flight 15's ship, I think they mean Flight 14's ship, in the ocean, do you think they'll have a proper recovery vessel nearby this time so they can recover it with less damage/corrosion if it survives? Or do you think SpaceX is going to be heck bent on making sure that this thing dies? It doesn't catch, it dies, it sinks, it blows up, something, so they don't have to deal with this again.
I mean,
Starship blows up.
it's obviously taking a lot of manpower, effort, and time and cost to get 40 back. And I think the only reason they're putting up with that is because it's the first ever Starship upper stage to survive. I think it's not like I can't imagine this being a regular thing if they do opt to go for any more suborbital trajectories or offshore landings for ship. I think 40 is a special exception to that because again, it is the first and it is the historical precedent. Like it is the first of its kind. But I imagine if ship 41 lands successfully in the Indian Ocean, presumably, or off Hawaii, or off Chile, depending on what they want to do, I think SpaceX will want to sink it. Honestly, I don't think they'll want to bring it back. That'll take too long. And honestly, I'm not even sure they have enough room to support all the flown ships that are not being planned to be reused.
And it also had a lot of luck. Like,
yeah,
there were 6 previous splashdowns, I think. I'm not gonna do the math right now, but there were a few other splashdowns before this, and none of them were that lucky, right? Of just splashing down enough, like the way that ship 40 splashed down, it was something like it was scooping up a little bit of the water with the engine section, so it slowed down as it was tipping over. Like even the tip over was really carefully, like really good in that sense that it was able to not blow up. Like, that was one of the things. Like I was there on the live stream with Sawyer and Ryan, and it was hilarious how we were all expecting the big explosion, and it's like it did not explode. Yeah. So I will say if they do another splashdown, I'd be surprised if it doesn't explode. Like if it survives intact again, man, that will be quite a like repeating again the intact splashdown. That will be quite a feat. I don't think it will be that easy to occur again. Similarly, I mean, Falcon 9 boosters also used to break up. There were only 2 that eventually, landed just the right. They had the right tip over to not break apart, because these things are very highly pressurized, but they are not meant to take sideways loads, and so when they hit the water, and just a tiny little bit of a crack, because they are highly pressurized, it creates the explosion, right? It's mostly just that than the effect of there being flammable propellants and all that stuff. And with Falcon 9, especially early on, the splashdowns used to blow up, and then CRS-16 with B-10 I think it was.
Mhm.
It landed soft enough, even though they had the grid frame failure. It landed soft enough that they were able to tow it back to port, and they used the RCS thrusters on Starhopper. So yeah, got a little bit of a reuse there.
Yeah, and it's way easier to tow Falcon back from the water near the LZ at the Cape than it is from Ship 40 literally across the entire freaking world.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, that was just a few miles away. This is
yeah, literally.
quite far away.
Port Canaveral was just a few miles down the coast, and Ship 40 is quite literally 10,000 miles across the planet. So
Yeah, definitely. But that's sort of the point, right? That maybe, just maybe, they may not have that luck again, and so I'm not so sure. And as you mentioned, maybe the second time, if it does survive, they already have Ship 40, so might as well. And hey,
if it
they
doesn't
really-
if it doesn't survive, that makes Ship 40 all the more special. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious, that's going crazy here.
yeah, I saw your message in the back channel, but yeah,
Well, welcome to Florida. in the
even if
summer.
even if it survives, they already have the mechanism. They already know how to do it. They have the experience, right? So might as well.
Mhm.
I will say they also have a way of how not to do it, because they originally intended to do the thing with the floats around the ship,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that didn't work too well because, as you were saying earlier, it was only being towed at 1-2 knots. It's not that
I
great.
mean, even
So now they
even
know-
still being towed by the Raptor, because they're dragging it literally like butt first.
Yeah.
That they were still only able to manage like 1 to 2 knots, because it's quite literally going in the opposite
those
direction
things.
Starship was meant to go. And even though Starship is meant to be aerodynamic, not hydrodynamic, but it's
I
shaped
think they were still towing it a little bit faster this time around with the engines.
probably.
of those things.
But
'Cause
still,
those
it's
things
like
they don't actually hold the thing, right? It's
Yeah.
just that they're keeping it there. It's a weird way of doing it, but
yeah.
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 And they also tried to tow it from the catching points and everything, and that clearly
God, that-
didn't work. So that's
That
another
poor
thing
Raptor.
that they could say, well, we'll not try it this way.
That poor Raptor. Like, I don't worry about the engine coming off, because it's obviously meant to support pushing an entire Starship up under its performed thrust. But those engine bells are a lot more fragile than you think they are. And if, like, as you can see from the RVAC nozzle on the left there, that one's crumpled a bit. And whether that's from the water or hitting some hardware during tow operations, I'm not quite sure. But those engine bells, when the engine's not firing, are actually pretty fragile. And they're a lot thinner than you would think as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, you want to save as much mass as possible, so make him as thin as he possibly can while still letting him survive.
Mm-hmm.
Fransam has a good question here, and this is something I know we've discussed during the static fires, but why would they not, after the orbital flight have it land in the Gulf? Do a Bach landing like they have done with the boosters? I mean, I know they don't really have the trajectory for it now, but after the success, why don't you say, hey, let's go for basically a full simulated catch just in the water instead?
Essentially, because that means you would still have to overfly populated areas, and in a flight where the ship is still deemed experimental and not fully certified to come back from orbit yet, the last thing you want to do is overfly any populated areas in the event that something goes wrong and the ship ends up coming down somewhere it's not supposed to, God forbid, around people. So, like, once they are confident the ship can come back from a fully orbital trajectory, and perform a successful deorbit burn and perform cross range from orbit, or perform cross range capability from orbit, then they'll feel a lot better about bringing it over people. But that would still mean, if they even if they want to have it splashed in the Gulf, that would still mean it still has to overfly a lot of populated areas, and which is what they're trying to avoid until the time comes. Essentially,
I mean, yeah, I guess. But if they were going to do a catch on this flight, wouldn't I mean, we know it seems like they're not. But if they were to do a catch on this flight, they would have to do that anyway, right? So
correct.
why
But
not? Just,
obviously, they're opting not to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that says enough, honestly.
so then, what about because I saw someone say, well, then have it splash down closer to the Pacific. Because right now, the two splashdown sites that they have approved are near Chile and near Hawaii. And of course,
Yep.
I think when we say near, we need to be careful of how close we're saying. It's not like you can hang out at the beach
Yeah.
of Oahu and go see it splash down right off the coast.
Yeah.
But
Hang on,
does
I
that
think
make
I
sense then?
posted I think yesterday I posted the maps. Let's see if Jay maybe can read those. I'm gonna give him the. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, they have a few entry areas basically where to splash down the ship during a flight, and so they have. I'm looking them up right now. They have the Gulf, of course. They also have sort of like the Indian Ocean. They've done that already. The Pacific Ocean. They have like a no-go zone, so to speak, around Hawaii. It's also protected land and everything, or protected waters in this case. But they have other places as well. And then they have another place off the coast of Chile. They are asking for an increase of those zones. Like there's a few paperwork, a little of paperwork already in the works for that sort of thing. Probably not going to be for this next flight, but for future operational flights where maybe they need a bit more land. There you can see the one for the Gulf. That's for like booster and ship. So obviously the booster uses it in the case of an offshore divert, or if they're planning a splashdown, that's sort of the area. But as you can see, it's a very big area, so that it also includes the ship as well. Yeah, and so there's a few exceptions there, like avoidance areas and things like that, where they wouldn't do that. That's the Indian Ocean area as well. Normally when they splash down, it's sort of like all the way to the east of that area that you can see there. And yeah. The next one, there we go. That's the Pacific Ocean one. They have like a little of a boundary area around Hawaii where they cannot splash down. And then they have a few other places as well where they cannot get anywhere close, but the rest are okay for that matter. And then the next one should be from Chile. There we go. Off the coast of Chile and a bit of Peru as well.
Peru.
There.
Yep.
Yeah. Basically west of South America there. So these different locations are basically the ones where you will probably be able to dump the ship and still have a very long re-entry tail, right? Because these are where it splashes down, but then you have all of the re-entry corridor before that, which is more than 1,000 miles before that. It's quite a long re-entry corridor. I mean, when they do the ones on the Indian Ocean, it's almost spans the entirety of the width of the Indian Ocean, so it's a really big re-entry corridor. And yeah, you need big oceans. The Atlantic Ocean, for example, might be useful in the future if it is like the North Atlantic and things like that. It's the widest there. Probably not in the equatorial areas and things like that, because you have Africa and South America right there.
Especially from Florida as well.
Yeah, I will guess that maybe if it was like a sun synchronous orbit or something like that, maybe you can do it right across the middle or something like that of the Atlantic if you were to dump it. But yeah, there's for example for flight 12, I think it is flight 12 what it says there, right? Yeah, Jay is confirming that in back channel. But yeah, that's the long re-entry corridor for an Indian Ocean splashdown. It goes all the way to the other side of the Indian Ocean. So they need a really big stretch of area for that re-entry. And as you were mentioning, a Gulf splashdown, they could, like it's there in that map. The problem is you have none of the benefits of, say, getting the actual ship back, right? If you're just splashing down, but you get all the downsides of actually flying over populated areas and having to close off certain airspaces and all that stuff. So I don't see the benefit in that particular case. I think it's probably going to be in the Pacific Ocean or something like that for this coming flight. They go into orbit, deploy the satellites, do a few laps, and then re-enter over the Pacific or something like that. Or if it lines up, maybe also the Indian Ocean. Who knows? Maybe it does line up. I have no idea. I've not done the math with the orbits and all the different things, you know? It maybe lines up, so who knows?
Come on, Alex. It's easy. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I had to do that one. But yeah, I guess then the other question is, if this does go to orbit, how long do you think it will stay up? Are we talking single orbit, like Davis shuttle, which was AOA, abort once around, say do an orbit and come back? Is this one where they stay a little longer? They maybe push it to 24 hours to see how it goes. Because if it's anything like current Starlink missions, they can deploy the satellites in like 50 to 60 minutes and be fine. So they could, in theory, come back in an orbit. But what do you think they'll do?
Um, that all depends. So they could theoretically have the payloads deployed in an hour, but the problem there is orbital mechanics. Because the Earth is moving underneath you, just because the launch site was in a spot when you launched from it means it's going to be in a much different spot when you come back to where you once were, or in that same spot around the orbit. The launch site would have moved because the Earth is obviously rotating underneath you. So it depends on where they want to come down and how long they want to stay up. If they're just trying to splash down in the Pacific, whether it be off, whether it be off Hawaii or Chile, I mean that could be as little as maybe 3 to 4 orbits, maybe. Out of focus there. Focus, dang it! There we go. But if they want to return the vehicle to Starbase, that's a much different thing, because the orbit has to the orbital flight path has to once again realign with the launch site, and ship right now has the ability to stay on orbit for up to 48 hours, limited by its power with batteries. So I think for a tower catch, it'll be a roughly 24-hour, I think, flight profile, because that will also give them enough time, if they are successful in catching the booster, that would give them time to lower the booster back onto the launch mount, detank it, safe it, and have it transported away, maybe in a period of like maybe 3 to 6 hours, and then give more time to inspect the tower, inspect the launch site, and make sure all is ready to go to receive a ship. But depends on what they're going for. Like I don't see a reason for them to stay in orbit for more than, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours for flight 14, unless they want to intentionally target around 24 hours or just less, to allow for a splashdown in the Pacific. But yeah, it all depends on what they want to do and how long they want to stay up, because orbital mechanics are very much a thing. And once you are in orbit, you have to follow them, otherwise you don't get very far.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, that's for when it comes back to Starbase. This one is not coming back to Starbase. There's basically 3 different possibilities of where they could end up splashing it down. So you don't have to wait as long for one of those. I mean, I think it's at least in orbit, but...
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like, I don't see them having the need to stay up for more than 4 to 6 hours in 14, unless they want to specifically try and stay in orbit for longer. It all depends on what they want to do. I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, I think we could see 3 or 4 orbits probably, and I think it's also going to depend on how well is the craft doing. Is there anything else that they want to check out? Because we haven't seen them put out their timeline yet of, hey, here's the objectives that we want to complete, other than obviously deploying the Starlink V3s. Yeah. And a lot of times they'll put in, we'll do an engine relight test, we'll do this. I wonder if they might try to do a sort of mid-course correction type burn, or like they do with current Starlink missions, where you get into orbit and then there's a second, 2-second burn to get into the deployment attitude and altitude.
I would imagine they would. Like, that's what my brain tells me immediately. Especially if you want to more heavy, if you want to have your orbit more circularized. But find out, I guess.
Yeah, with the longer relight that they did on flight 13, I actually did the math, and they couldn't, like, if we assume that they enter like a suborbital flight like the previous missions, right away on the first burn of the ship, and then they do like a second burn on the apogee in order to be able to go up into the operational altitude and whatnot for the deployment of the Starlinks, and then they deploy the Starlinks, and then they do the deorbit burn. It will be 2 in-space burns in that case, but again, nothing that, I mean, if you can do one, you can probably do a second one. But if you add up the duration of the 2, you get to about 14-15 seconds, which is about the length of time of the in-space burn that they did on flight 13, and also about the same duration of the one that they did with ship 41 as well. So it kind of lines up. Like, it doesn't need to be as long as they did it on flight 13, that 14-15 second burn that they did, or the one that they did just a couple of days ago with Ship 41 for just the deorbit burn. Because even though it's a very big ship, if it's already deployed its satellites and whatnot, it's mostly empty and it's coming down from a very low orbit. So it doesn't need a really long burn. It's just only like 4 or 5 seconds, basically. So in theory, it could have the oomph to do all of that and then also do the landing burn. Because after that long in-space burn that they did on Flight 13, they also did the landing burn with the ship, and even a rather successful landing burn that they did. So I don't know, maybe it's some kind of 2-3 burn profile or something like that, and then maybe it does. One of the things you were talking about, the sort of 48-hour more or less limit that they have with the baseline version of version 3, right? Where it's like maybe because the catch takes longer for the alignment and everything, maybe that's what they might want to test this time around. Instead of just one orbit, maybe they do like 4 or 5 of them and they deorbit over the Pacific or something like that. And they get sort of like an in-between point, in between what they need for the catch of 24 hours at the very least, versus just 1 hour after launch doing the splashdown. Maybe they can do like an in-between and test the endurance or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's also the reason why they don't catch this flight. Maybe they want to have more time doing endurance of the ship or something like that. I have no idea. There are many reasons out there to think about, oh well, now they're not catching. Why is it? Well, they might want just more data. It doesn't even need to be about the landing, right? It's gonna stay up there for a few more hours. So that could be.
Yeah, and get a couple of those Starlinks to have the cameras on them again. Do the 6, camera ones
Yeah.
that we can get all the studying of the heat shield. And heck, depending on how long you stay in orbit and when they decide to actually do the thruster activation on those V3s to start getting them out of the way, kind of just keep it there. Study how the ship orbits, what it looks like while it's orbiting. And then before, re-entry, then you take the V3 satellites and start them on their way to their slow burn to their eventual shell. So I don't know. We will have to see. Let me thank Z Manover Street, who came in with the $10 earlier, saying, "Keep up the good work, fellas." Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And obviously, it's been a lot going on the last couple days here with all the stuff with Starship and Starlink and all the other stars and things that are going on. So we appreciate that. And in fact, there's so much that you should check out This Week in Spaceflight coming up immediately following this, hosted by Alicia, where you can get all the latest space news going on, more than we talked about here, because of course we went in depth on just a few topics. There's a lot more that's going to be discussed. And as a reminder from earlier, see how many Swift references you catch during Alicia's segment. She added them herself. So I'm going to be very interested to see how many
Even in
it
the
is
title.
and what some of them are. Why? What's the title?
Well, I guess it depends in which title it catches you with the A/B testing and whatnot. But yeah, it's NASA says goodbye to Swift, not Taylor's version.
I don't know. Let's see which one Jay Keegan ended up getting once it
I wonder.
decides to load. Yeah.
If it loads.
Everybody gets different titles and
Jay
thumbs.
broke
Thank
it.
you, YouTube. Yes, it broke it. As we can see a preview of Jay's present screen, and it's being sad. Yeah, NASA says goodbye to Swift, not Taylor's version. I don't know. Anyway, let me thank the people that joined me here today. I guess since I'm looking at Max, thank you for joining.
Pleasure as always, Sawyer. that was a fun show, y'all. There was a lot to talk about there. It's always fun talking about Starship and stuff that we don't normally get to talk about, like Starship recovery in the ocean. So, yeah, that was fun, and thank you very much for coming to hang out with us.
And thank you as well. I'm scared to see what the background is going to be now. Alex, thank you for joining us as well.
It's still Ship 41. I mean, I can change it if you want to, but it's still going to be Ship 41 because it's the last topic that we cover. Hey, look, I've been able for at least the last month or so to change my own background, so now I can have fun with that as long as I am allowed by the producers. But yeah, basically, it's always fun to be around here and talking all things spaceflight, from China to Starship to New Glenn, all the things.
Oh yeah. And of course, I want to thank the members that make all of this possible. All of you, in particular, the launch directors and flight engineers, with the highest levels of support that we have here. Goodness gracious, the text size now.
What happened there?
There's a
Oh my
lot
Lord.
of you, and we appreciate every single one of you. So thank you, launch directors, flight engineers. And I think there's someone else that I'm supposed to thank. They told me to remember the members. I always remember the members, but I don't remember who the producer is. Who remembers who the producer is anyway? Definitely not Jay Keegan.
Probably
today.
not important.
No, it's definitely not Jay Keegan. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I've been your host for today's Flame Trench. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, and let's go watch This Week in Spaceflight.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Doubling up.
Did you just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, it sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
Equalize.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No.
Oh my God.
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.